I either have or will cover other parts of this franchise,
this video contains spoilers
and
for the subject and the series.
this video either is or will be linked below. I'm not going to restate here what I did or will say in the other video.
With as much
These videos
content
get long enough as it is.
as much detail as I possibly can. Anything I feel I can comment on and that I feel you might be interested in, I pretty much put in the video. I try not to repeat myself and talk fairly fast.
I either have or will cover other parts of this franchise, and this video either is or will be linked below. I'm not going to restate here what I did or will say in the other video. These videos get long enough as it is.
Did I accidentally play one of those twice? Anyway, Avengers Infinity War 3D thoughts. Yes, no spoiler-free review this time. Yes, I realize that a lot of people will be able to watch this video before they'll be able to watch the movie, but still got the tennis elbow, so gotta save on my wrists, and this is, yeah. Hypothetically, maybe some of you are like, well, if, you know, maybe you'd like to hear, before I do get into spoilers, just what I thought of it without giving anything away that you shouldn't know before watching it. It is a truly amazing movie. It's everything I hoped for. Yeah, if you've been following the MCU from the start and you were hoping for some big, yeah, this is it. This is they didn't promise too much. They deliver. It's one of my absolute favorites of the entire franchise. It might well be my absolute favorite. I have to let it land before I can say for sure. But it's absolutely amazing. But yes, it is a part one. Unfortunately, it is not a complete. You know, I don't know. I don't know what the story is going to be in the next one. But suffice it to say, at the end of this movie, it's not really. Yeah, it is a part one. There's obviously more that's going to happen, which. Ultimately, the other movies in the MCU up to this point have been complete stories, you know, so, yeah. Now, starting with notes, 1 second. Notes taken while watching. Now, once again, these are, I wrote them in hand, literally with my hands, you know, pencil to notepad in the theater, you know, so a few of these are going to be in like, what's it called, just a few words, and I'll try to expand upon them. I don't intend to say just a few, you know, yeah, anyway. I'm going to try to make every single one of these make sense the way they did to me when I wrote them down. However, I, once again, tennis elbow, had to voice type them into Google Docs, and it does not like the word Thor. I don't know. There are a lot of words that it can deal with, but Thor, Thanos, and Wakanda, it just does not like, among others. So if I accidentally say Africa, I mean Wakanda. If I accidentally say Hemsworth, I mean Thor. If I accidentally say Josh or Brolin, I mean Thanos. Now, literally the very first thing we see is Thanos and his children attacking Thor's ship. And I really appreciate there at the start, you know, it's a cool way to open the movie, to have, like, you're hearing, like, a, you know, distress call, but then it actually does pay off later. You know, when the Guardians arrive at the, what's it called? Yeah, you know, where at the wreckage, they were following the distress call. That's how the whole thing happens. And you know, it's not by chance that it really resembles the opening of the original of episode 4 of Star Wars. You know, you see a huge ship attacking a much smaller ship. Then, you know, in this it's not stormtroopers, it's Thanos' children, but yeah, they slaughter the people on board. Wow, I hadn't even thought of it, but yeah, Thanos even does grab one of them by the throat, and you know, yeah, just yeah. Now, I'm I'm sorry, I do not know the names for the Black Order, and as they're referred to in this, the Children of Thanos. I'm fairly certain they're not in the comics supposed to be, you know, they're not the adopted children of Thanos, like, you know, Gamora and Nebula, but it's, you know, it's an easy way to make it understandable. You know, you realize these have also been really, you know, brutally treated by Thanos, and they are devoted to making his will be done. And, you know, I really like that one of them sort of acts sort of a priest for Thanos, and he's literally telling his victims how great it is for them to die at the hand of Thanos. And yeah, that's what. And Thanos actually picks up Thor like a, you know, like he's a cardboard cutout or something, just nothing. You know, again, this is, you know, we've seen, usually Thor does not get picked up like that. It really helps establish, they do a really good job of immediately establishing how far Thanos will go and how powerful he is, which is extremely important in a movie so big with so many characters. Immediately establish that. And you know, the Hulk versus Thanos especially was, yeah. And you know, and Loki says, go ahead, kill Thor. And we still have some comedy with Thor. Again, I wasn't the biggest fan of that in Ragnarok, but really, at the end of the day, what it boils down to is, A, that's really not how he'd been characterized up to that point. He's not always overly serious, but he's not an outright comedian. He doesn't snark at the situations he's in. And B, that friggin' crack about, oh, didn't find any Infinity Stones. That's such a terrible line. It's if I could change only one thing about Ragnarok, that would probably be it. Anyway, already did a video on that movie. Yeah, you know, a lot of people really liked it was a lot of people's favorite Thor movie, and I can see why. If you don't like the other two, then I can totally see why. You know, I prefer the other two, but I always liked the other two. Now, let's see. And I am someone who is, you know, the moment that I heard that they were going to make Avengers movies, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of Thor in the comics, but I was like, I'll take a Thor movie as long as it's good, and the first one is great. Now, yeah, really love that we get Hulk versus Thanos as one of the very first things in the movie. You know, it really, like, you know, you sit down, you get this really ominous opening of, like, you know, all these Asgard, literally, you know, there's that thing, Asgard is not a place, it's a people. Now it's not a people either. Literally, within a few minutes of this movie, the only Asgardian left is Thor. And I guess it's possible that Valkyrie, I don't know, somehow survived and we just didn't see her. I mean, we didn't see Sif die, so again, there's some chance, but honestly, I don't need it to be a good explanation. If they somehow get the two of them in the next, actually, yeah, I guess if so, they've already filmed it, I guess. But yeah, if they somehow, if they're in the next, in part 2 of the Infinity War, which I think I'm gonna keep calling it that now that I know that this really was a part 1. Yeah, the I don't need them to come up with a good explanation. I would like to see them more, especially Valkyrie. It's just incredibly entertaining. I have no problem with Sif. I think it's just the moment that they decided that she was not going to be the love interest, they didn't really have a lot for her to do in the first 2 movies. I don't blame her for favoring that show she's on over, you know, appearing in Thor 3. But yeah, you know, uh, there's a lot in this movie to remember, but let me see if I remember it correctly. Loki says, you know, okay, don't kill Thor. I'll give you the Tesseract. And he raises it, you know, he has it in his hand and holds it out, and Thanos goes up again, up towards it, and then suddenly he's like tackled by Hulk, basically. And, you know, while we don't know for absolute certain, I can imagine what happened was Banner was hiding out, avoiding being seen by the different, you know, by Thanos' children, waiting for the right time to strike. And basically he, you know, he knew that Loki was going to give him a signal, basically. Maybe Thor knew as well, and just pretended to be angry at Loki. And once Banner had transformed into the Hulk, you know, he started running towards Thanos, although very silently, I guess. But you know, and at that, Loki held out the Tesseract so that they both knew exactly where Thanos would be standing, and so Thanos couldn't just dive out of the way or something when Hulk came running. But yeah, I love that he beats the Hulk, and he's not like cheating or something. It's a very straightforward fight, and he actually defeats the Hulk, and it's within maybe 1 or 2 minutes of them starting to punch each other. Because I mean, it's not making Hulk look weak, because we know he's extremely powerful. We've seen how powerful. If this was the first time we ever saw the Hulk in the MCU, that would be BS. But it's not. We've seen him a lot of times. We've seen him beat the crap out of incredibly powerful. So yeah, when we see it here, it's not, oh man, Hulk is suddenly weak. It's, man, Thanos really is incredibly strong. And I found that it was a satisfying fight. Sometimes when you have, you know, this character is defeating this other character so that we can establish how powerful, you know, sometimes that gets incredibly annoying and doesn't make for a good action scene. And I would definitely say that in this one they managed to make it. Excuse me, there we go. There we go. Because ultimately that is the point of the fight, is to show just how powerful Thanos is. And I mean, that is Hulk's deal for the rest of the movie, isn't it? He doesn't want to come out to fight again. You know, maybe he's legitimately afraid of being hurt. Maybe it's his ego. I mean, in Ragnarok, he was like, nobody can do anything to me. I'm the big badass. I'm the coolest guy in the universe. And suddenly he, you know, gets curb stomped. So yeah. and we see, Thanos and his children for the 2 gems on Earth, which is where we, yeah, the Time Stone and the Mind Stone. And again, I really appreciate that Thanos is clearly, he's not wasting any time. We're told he raided Xandar, and we knew that was going to be a thing that happened, and yeah, as it is, we don't see it. It's possible that it's like a deleted scene that'll show up on DVD, but a lot of people aren't going to watch that. If you're watching this video and you haven't made up your mind, if this is at all a movie you think you'd be interested in, watch it in the theater, watch it in 3D, absolutely. Anyway, yeah, it's annoying when a villain is not that competent, and yeah, he very much is. He doesn't waste any time. He doesn't do stupid. On Earth, he can at most face the Avengers in going to the various planets that he needs to go to. Yeah, for one thing, the Guardians are out there, and it's not quite clear how much he knows about the Guardians of the Galaxy, but he knows that Nebula and Gamora are out there. Well, actually, at the start of the movie, I think Nebula has already been captured by him, but yeah, I mean, that if he wasn't really thinking about Nebula before, then that's a stark reminder. He says she came real close, and it's the first thing Gamora tries to do when, he alters reality so that it didn't, but yeah. But yeah, on Earth is, he knows that Loki couldn't do it with the Chitauri army, but that was Chitauri and that was Loki. That wasn't his children. Now, and Loki tries to stab Thanos, and he gets grabbed and choked, and Thanos indeed snaps his neck. And I'll admit I laughed when Thor said it's not the first time he died, but this time it seems like it's gonna stick. I maybe wouldn't have done that joke. I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's just for his death to have weight. Yeah. But I really appreciate. I did not really like what they did with him in Ragnarok. He was just a joke, and he didn't do anything particular. He was constantly being outsmarted. It's not fun to see Loki get outsmarted. It can be fun to see him, get his ass kicked as he's talking about how smart he is. But yeah, it's not interesting to see him outsmarted. Really, the entirety of Ragnarok, him having taken the throne in Ragnarok should have been a way bigger deal. It shouldn't have been dealt with in such a short space of time. But anyway, there's one or more College Humor articles about that. I forget which of. I think it's the one written by the guy who isn't Andrew Bridgman. The Jake, I think, yeah. Who's sometimes on Drawfee, old baby Gus, and all that, yeah. Who, yeah, he goes into how it moves way too fast, especially early on. Anyway, yeah, I really appreciate, he doesn't have a lot of time here, Loki does, but what he does, it's pure Loki. He's like, go ahead, kill my brother, I don't care. And then we realize, well, he was waiting for the Hulk to be ready, and he pretends to side with Thanos, but then readies, one of his blades, as he's wont to do. And indeed, if Thanos hadn't managed to stop, freeze him, basically, again, it's not time freezing. I guess it's more, it's like telekinesis basically, but with the glove kind of, I think. But yeah, and I appreciate that, when Thanos burns the ship, it has the purple fire, is it power? Is it the power stone? Maybe I forget what it's called, but yeah, and he just said, I stole the, I grabbed this from Xandar, and yeah, that was it's, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, he sets it on fire with the purple fire from the purple gem, and he teleports away. I really appreciate it. Yeah, a few of these are this next one came before that, but anyway, Heimdall manages to Bifrost Hulk onto Earth. I really appreciate that. It's basically it's the one thing Heimdall gets to do in the movie, but it's really heroic and helps change things because when Banner is running the Hulkbuster later on, he does defeat a bunch of the aliens, which I forget what they're called. Whenever I say alien in this, I mean one of those alien soldiers. And Tony dreamt that Pepper was pregnant, and originally I had theorized that like they were going to be talking about, and like she would, be talking about like wedding plans or something, but instead they went with, pregnancy, and are the Russos just really attached to the idea of people thinking Pepper is pregnant? Because in Civil War, Steve thought that she was pregnant, but yeah, I guess the next, if it appears in the in Avengers 4, I'm gonna go with that. Then we'll know that it's a thing with them, because I mean they couldn't have put it in Captain America 2 because that movie barely even mentions stuff. That would have been hilarious though, if like when Fury is talking about Stark had a few design inputs once he got a close-up look at our old engines. Did you know Pepper was pregnant? Anyway, not was. And yeah, Tony and Pepper are still really sweet together. I really appreciate that she got this brief scene, but yeah. Now, am I remembering wrong? Didn't the origin of the gems, as explained in Guardians 1, wasn't that different from the one we get in this? In this, they talk about that, like, oh wait, no, actually no. They express it slightly differently, but I guess now that I think about it, nope, yeah, never mind. Again, a lot going on in this movie, so some of it I might accidentally mix up, even though I did watch it not many hours ago. As I record this, the movie ended 2 hours and 15 minutes ago or so, and yeah, had to have dinner and set this thing up, and again, voice type the notes. Did it as quickly as I could. That's not an excuse. And I really appreciate that Tony and others get to riff and quip. I like, Peter tells Ned to cause a distraction, and he doesn't really have to, because the moment Ned sees the spaceship, he's shouting at everyone, oh my, look at that, there's a spaceship, we're in danger, And the Stanley cameo is the bus driver, and he's like, come on, haven't you ever seen a spaceship before? Don't stand there like you've never seen the hand of God. And is that supposed to be the character he also played in the Avengers? Because he was like, superheroes in New York? Give me a break. Rather than, wow, I just saw aliens. That was freaky, So, yeah. Now, I really like, I'm sorry, I forget who, but one of them calls the child of Thanos with the long face Squidward, and yeah, it does look like Squidward. Didn't someone put like a meme to that also? I think maybe they already maybe they already decided by then, or maybe they saw the meme and added the line. Now, and yeah, around this point in the movie, we see that Banner cannot transform into Hulk. And we get excuse me, the bleeding edge, excuse me, armor, you know, nanotech. Really love that we got to see that. Now, you know, Josh is showing one of them uses telekinesis. I think Squidward is the one using telekinesis, and then there's that huge one who's got like this hammer thing. They use those really well. That's, yeah, it could very easily have not. Again, just the MCU really does well at that. You know, it's so frustrating to see other, you know, superhero franchises not. Yeah. And let's see. Yeah, and I really like that, you know, you have the thing about to hit, and then like Spider-Man's head pops out and he's like, oh man, just that was awesome, because we hadn't seen him get all the way over there, but enough time has passed that he could have gotten over there. Now, and Wong teleports one of Thanos' children to like the Antarctic or something. What was that? The mountain that Doctor Strange himself was teleported to, so he did by the Ancient One, so that he would learn how to, you know, teleport. And Pepper calls Tony's cell and is clearly worried, and like the cell breaks up. Maybe that's like a reference to. Am I saying like too much? Anyway, maybe it's a reference to an Avengers one where he tries to call her, but she doesn't pick up when he's, you know, flying with a nuke. I don't know, but I really liked it. I really appreciated that we get, you know, her worried and upset about that. And yeah, like, I mean, within a few minutes, you go from the two of them talking, and he's like, well, you know, you're pregnant, and suddenly he's heading into space, and she's like, please don't do this. You know, this just, yeah. I really love that, you know, most of the title cards in this movie are, you know, very specific, you know. I forget if New York got one, but something like New York. And then the one for the Guardians is space. That's, yeah, that's great. And they're introduced singing along to a song. I forget which one it is, but I'm almost certain it's one of those oldies. So, and that was something I was, you know, obviously they were going to do that with the Guardians. It would be absurd not to, but I'm really glad. I appreciate that it's like the first thing, because if it wasn't, then we'd be like, get to the song. Come on, get to the song, you know. Now, and they're talking about how like Quill gained weight, and it's like, I don't know. I guess maybe it's something you shouldn't really laugh too much, like body shaming and such. But I mean, the joke is he's clearly not. He looks great still. You know, it's just that he used to be very impressive looking, but you know, compared to Chris Hemsworth, you know, there's only so much. Yeah. Let's see. And I like that, you know, Mantis uses her telepathy. I really like. I mean, there were people who were like, what does she contribute? She didn't even fight anyone. All she did was tell Ego to go to sleep, you know. But clearly she's useful. So yeah, okay, we have this knocked out guy. How about we use the telepath to scan like his mind and then force him to wake up? Because, you know, if they just leave him there and he wakes up and they've got their backs turned and he's an enemy, you know, but her waking him up like that, yeah, and I do like that, you know, he does like get up and is like ready to fight, and when we see them, they're all also ready to fight. Now, and Hemsworth and Quill have a Chris off, and Quill tries to sound more tragic, yeah. And I don't think the movies do enough to establish how long has passed between the movie before the last time we saw these characters and such, but in this we actually, you know, for 2 years Wanda and Vision have been trying to like keep people from knowing they're together, and you know, we're told I think it's Steve who says it. We agreed. You stay close, you stay out of danger, and we'll, back off. We won't let you, because it is this, I mean, it's almost kind of like a Romeo and Juliet kind of thing, their houses are at war. So, yeah, they do kind of have to, I would, if Romeo and Juliet had Captain America, Black Widow, and Falcon in it, I would love that play way more. It's a great play, but it's no MCU. Now, and one of Thanos' children attack Wanda and Vision because they're going for the gem. And Wanda fences with the kid using her telekinesis, and he or she is using their blade, And in comes Steve, Falcon, and Widow, and it plays the Avengers theme. There are going to be people, there may already have been, I've only read the Rotten Tomatoes summaries of reviews. People might say that the Avengers theme is overused in this. I would completely have to disagree. It's used several times, yes, but every single time it's awesome. And basically every time it is with like Steve, Falcon, and Widow and such. And yeah, I mean, I guess they are. What with Tony no longer being on Earth, yeah, I guess they basically are the Avengers. But yeah, I don't know if they were trying to subtly say, yeah, the pro registration people are not the pro Accords people are not Avengers now. And the flashbacks when Gamora was 7 was really good. As he points out, she's tough. She's not like crying and sobbing, breaking down. No, she's walking around like, demanding. Yeah, that's really great. And he immediately, and this literally, he finds her and he sees she's not weak. She's not just giving up. And he hands her a knife. That's so twisted, but yeah, that's how she became an assassin. The first thing that's how he made her an assassin. The first thing is he gives her a knife and is impressed with the fact that she can balance it on this really, really great. And and Gamora demands Quill swear he'll kill her. Swear on your mother. And that's, I love the MCU. That's such a great. I mean, that means nothing to you if you didn't watch the first 2 movies. But if you didn't watch Guardians 1 and 2, what are you doing? Why didn't you watch them before watching this movie? Yeah, with just a few words, swear on your mother, because then I know you're telling the truth. And then when he agrees, they kiss, and then later when both of them think he'll be killing her, they both say I love you to each other. And it's definitely what a lot of viewers want. I would like to see them get there eventually. Here it feels unearned. I would refer you to Lindsay Ellis's video, The Complex Feels of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, for an excellent explanation of why they aren't together yet and why it's a bit down the line. And yeah, I just don't see it as. I think if for something like that, it should be in the 3rd Guardians movie, and it should be something that's earned over the course of the film. It's a little too easy to just have 2 people that everyone expects to eventually end up together to kiss and say I love you, and yeah. And Drax goes in for revenge, and Gamora stabs Thanos twice, and he asks why. that's so, he genuinely, you know, when he found, when he heard the, you know, in Guardians 1, he hears that Gamora betrayed them, and he isn't like, find her and kill her like he is with so many. No, he says, you've alienated her. You know, it's like, what did you do? What did you do, Ronan? How did you manage to alienate my favorite daughter? You know, you incompetent buffoon. You know, yeah. And Quill calls Thanos Grimace and Nut Chin, and yeah. Again, clearly they realized that people would think that he looked silly, because that is I don't think I heard those two, but I did hear like, oh, he looks like Bruce Willis, he looks like Joss Whedon, and what was that other one? Yeah, someone said that he looked, I don't know his name, but that guy with like pawn shop, or you know, yeah, it's online. I don't let's see, and you know, Thanos alters reality to immediately defeat Drax and Mantis. And I'm fairly certain I saw in one of the comics that he does turn someone, a humanoid person, into like, you know, strips of paper like that. Oh, and if you're watching this and you haven't yet watched College Humor's video, I think it was something like Infinite Avengers, excuse me, watch it. And, you know, pause this video, watch that, then come back. I assume that if you watch past this point, you have watched that video or you don't care to. That video is hilarious, and the crack at the end with, like, you know, I killed all those people, want to go out with me? And what does she say? Ew, no, or something, and he's like, aww. I think that's kind of why I'm gonna go more into the whole, you know, he's no longer courting death in this movie thing, but I think that's the image that a lot of people who were worried about if they had gone with that Thanos, the comics Thanos, in other words, that's the image a lot of people would have. And even if it didn't play out like that, it's difficult if the audience goes into a movie and they have a specific image in their head of, you know, I mean, when you watch Batman Begins, it takes a long time before you see in that movie, can't believe I'm blanking on his name, but yeah, you know, who dressed as a bat, you know, because on some level, you know, Nolan had to make people completely accept this is not the Schumacher Batman. You know, if the movie had opened with Batman the way that the other, you know, the 4 movies before it opened with Batman in full costume, a lot of people might have been like, oh, right, you know, what killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age, and, you know, whiny Robin, and, you know, mutant penguin, and, you know, Prince soundtrack from the first one. I think that's probably the worst thing about the first movie, you know. It just, I'm sorry, it just did not age well, you know. If I were being attacked by zombies and I had to throw a record, yes, that would probably be the first record that I would throw. There was something else that I was going to, yeah, just, I think that's, I'm going to get more into that. I should say at this point, I don't know for sure if this might be another Justice League kind of video where I get through all the notes that I took during the movie on this first night, but then I end up just filming the rest of it. Actually, I guess since I'm not filming this on a Saturday, since, you know, I watched this with a friend and this was the day and time that best fit for him, and it was indeed the premiere date, so that's great. And it's criminal that the theater was not packed. I have no idea how that's, but yeah. Anyway, we were maybe 24 people in there or something, but the yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be, you know, I'll see over the next while if I go through the entire. I'm currently on page 1 of 19 because I took a lot of notes before watching this movie over the months leading up to it. Now, and Thanos makes it seem as though Quill will kill Gamora, but he stops it, and it's incredibly sadistic and cruel of him. I don't quite know why. Well, yeah, I guess, yeah, the reason he does it to Gamora, I'm not questioning why he does it to Quill, but the reason he does it to Gamora is because he wants to punish her for asking him to kill her. And yeah, when he knows her so well that he almost immediately realizes, she did, didn't she? She asked you to kill her. Well, here you go. Go right ahead. You know, there. She's right in front of her face is right in front of your gun. Go ahead. I'm not gonna stop you, you know. And they emotionally and mentally prepare themselves for that. And he presses the trigger and bubbles come out. And then the gun becomes bubbles. If Thanos wanted to, he could have done that the moment that the two of them started talking about Quill killing her, you know. But no, he wanted them both to suffer. He wanted them both to feel pain because of that decision. And Rhodey, in just a few words, you know, almost immediately, like, you know, he says, I forget exactly what he says about the Accords, but yeah, he is like, you know, yep, the Accords sure are great, it, you know, tore the Avengers apart, and yeah. And I'm probably going to go more into that in either this video or the next one or whatever. And they talk about that if they hit Vision's gem with a similar level of force, they can destroy it. And so the Avengers go to Wakanda to help Vision to get the gem out of Vision. I will grant that the movie, you know, ultimately, the whole thing with getting the gem out of Vision, ultimately a lot of time is devoted to that screen time. You know, a lot of it is action scenes, but ultimately a lot of screen time is devoted to how do we get the gem out of Vision, and will the good guys be able to destroy it before Thanos gets his hands on it, and the whole thing. And ultimately the resolution to it is very swift, and it didn't need to take up that so much time. You know, I'm not unhappy with it, but I would understand people who are. And I mean, I guess otherwise we have the Soul Gem. I'd say the amount of screen time spent on the Soul Gem is a good amount. And then we have Doctor Strange and of course the Time Gem and the Avengers trying to defeat Thanos on Titan. And I think the right amount of screen time is devoted to that as well. Even though it is, you know, kind of frustrating that they get so close and then Quill screws it up. But yeah, ultimately I think it'll depend on how different of a story the next one is. I don't think this movie was too long to get that said, and I wasn't bored for a second. I was incredibly engaged from start to finish. But if the next one, if you know, The Hobbit ultimately should have been 2 movies. The third movie is overlong. The second movie lacks a climax. So, yeah, I kind of hope that the Avengers 4 won't be, you know, the yeah, that it won't feel like they might as well have had some of that movie in this movie, and they would have been able to if they hadn't spent so much time on the Vision thing. You know, again, it's especially because, you know, I mean, really, first the children of Thanos try to take it, and they fail, and they get defeated, and they go back to, you know, the ship or something, and they're like, "You'll never get another chance to kill us," you know, and. And yeah, I guess actually, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. They're like, first they think that they can do it on their own, but then they get defeated, and so the next time they attack, they bring a huge army. That, yeah, but then we have, you know, oh, we gotta do a thing with Vision. I know, we'll go to Wakanda, and then Wakanda is like, oh, we gotta fight to protect Vision. Okay, do this, this, and this to fight, and then they go out and start fighting, and a little while is spent with Shuri trying to get the gem out, and then the children get in there, and she tries to fight them off, but Vision, you know, the stone is still in Vision's head, and then there's a fight that it feels a little too. I get it. I get it was a tactical decision. You know, they outsm they yeah, they were smart in how they handled the Vision situation. At first it looks like they're just throwing alien bodies at the, you know, that they're never going to accomplish anything. They're never going to get through the barrier, but ultimately they do. Yeah, and Bucky is given the arm that some of us thought he would get in the post-credit scene of Black Panther, and Doctor Strange is being tortured, and Tony, Spider-Man, and Strange's cape help free him. I really like I forget what words it was Strange said, but he said something very unusual, and Tony's like, I can't believe you just used those words. And Doctor Strange is like, I can't believe you're leaning up against the, you know, something or something. And yeah, just, that's really good. And I appreciate, you know, Steve, like, he finds out that Tony left the planet, and he's like, we just lost one of the best men defending this planet. Just, yeah, I really love MCU Steve. I really do. I have to admit, there were, you know, some of the, when you see the trailers, he's always just looking tough and really serious. I was a little bit worried that they would be, like, have some animosity between the two. I really appreciate that they didn't. And, you know, Spider-Man brings up Aliens, this really old movie, because, you know, similar to how it was in Civil War. And I appreciate that, you know, when he says it in Civil War, I mean, it basically, it starts out as just, you know, the others are like, that, he calls that old, seriously, he's that young to, you know, and then he's like, look, listen, what I'm thinking is that scene with the, you know, AT-ATs. No, not AT-ATs, because if they're AT-ATs, then the chicken walkers are st-st. That makes no sense. They're ST-STs and AT-ATs. You know, it's the, never mind. The yeah, you know, he's like, oh, right, you know, he explains that strategy. I like that in this, he just says, the movie, and then, you know, Tony is like, what was it he said? If you make one more pop culture reference, I'm sending you home, or something like that. You know, and we're like, aliens, what exactly is that? You know, and then they blow a hole to use the vacuum of space. I don't know, maybe it was supposed to be obvious, but I was like, what part of aliens exactly are they? I'm not gonna lie, for a second I thought that Tony was gonna, like, land, you know, behind and tell him, get away from him, you. You know, yeah. Let's see, and you know, Tony and Doctor Strange both have huge egos, so they of course can't just immediately get along, and just really love that. And then Tony says, Doctor, do you concur? is that a Catch Me If You Can reference? I thought he just told Peter not to make reference anyway. And he like knights, Spider-Man to be an Avenger. I also really like that, at the very start, Peter is just wearing the suit that he was wearing because he declined to put on the newer suit. And Tony, like sends the thing on so that it'll form the suit over him, so that he'll be taken back to Earth. And I really liked Gamora and Thanos by the throne. Excuse me, very mellow, dramatic, and him like saying, I know that's how you felt. I know that's how you felt too, because yeah, she told him what she thought, and that didn't make him like get rid of her. Some people can't stand if like their children or such talk back to them or such. But yeah, to Thanos, that, yeah, I mean, it clearly bothered him, but not in a way that made, I mean, he doesn't feel like he's talking to an enemy, that he doesn't talk to her as though she betrayed him. He talks as though it's like an awkward family reunion, like they haven't talked for a while, and then suddenly one of them has some sort of disease that they need to tell the other about, or maybe borrow money or something. But and they're like, oh yeah, I remember that. We really used to argue about that. I really appreciate. I love how they handle Thanos in this. I love that he isn't just one note. Thanos is now my favorite MCU villain. Loki used to be, and Thanos has managed to surpass him, which I did not think would be possible, especially with just one movie. But he's not just one-note evil. He does something awful, but he thinks that it's right, and he feels, he doesn't like causing, just, yeah. He has sympathy, and yeah. And then Thanos is literally pulling Nebula apart in front of Gamora because yeah, that's her weakness. That's how he'll get information out of her. And I'm not gonna lie, the moment that I get it. It's because she has, she's part cyborg, so her, there's something in her that records what she sees, and they went through that tape, which just makes me think of like Spaced, when the two agents have to sit through all of Daisy's recordings of Vietnam, I think. But yeah, they went through that and found the part where, yeah, clearly she knows. And I also get why Gamora told her, because it's important, and Gamora didn't think about that, option. But I'm not gonna lie, the moment that I saw it like projected out, I was like, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. And it turns out Thor speaks Groot. It was an elective in, it was high school, college, something like that. That's really funny. I'm never gonna stop loving new jokes about Groot and his language. I love the other ones in this movie as well. And we see that Rocket actually has sympathy for Hemsworth. At first, I was like, when he's like, okay, gotta get my captain on, and so I wasn't sure if he was being serious, but yeah, he seems to genuinely care about Thor's problems, and he gives Thor, and like he says, you're gonna need two eyes. Is that a little? I mean, that's a little bit easy of a. Did they just really badly want him to have two eyes in this after he lost one? I thought that they were gonna stick with that, but anyway. Yeah, that is maybe a little bit. I don't think they needed to give him the eye back, but anyway. Is that the eye that Rocket has been wanting for 2 Guardians movies? Like, the first one, he's like, there's one more thing we need. That guy's eye. And the guy's like, oh no, And then, oh, don't put the eye back. Why not? because tomorrow he'll wake and he won't know where his eye is. So I guess he finally just went ahead and took it. I like the line also, I won a bet against, and he gave you his eye. No, he gave me 100 credits. I broke in and stole his eye that night. And Groot is playing a video game in the middle of an actual adventure. It reminds me a lot of that South Park episode. I think it's the one where they introduce Towley, who I feel like if you don't watch the intro, the first episode of Towley, you might find him kind of annoying, but once you watch that episode and then you watch the later ones, I personally, he's one of my favorite characters. Anyway, and Nebula manages to escape. She outsmarts that guard by detaching her eye after she, and manages a message, meet her on Titan, and as she's walking, she's putting the last parts of her cyborg body back into place and such. I really appreciate that the movie isn't all huge battles. It's not overwhelming. And I recently rewatched Revenge of the Sith. That movie has too much action, too little involvement, too little variation of the action, and this movie does not. And really, both of them are huge finales that people have waited years to get to. So yeah, it would have been very easy for this movie to be like that, but I appreciate, yeah. And I really like the fight between the Guardians and the, let's go with Space Avengers, because I don't know what, yeah, you've got Space Avengers and Earth Avengers in this movie. Yeah, it was a great fight, and it is, I recently earlier today, I rewatched Lindsay Ellis's video about, superheroes fighting other superheroes, and she points out these battles could be avoided if the heroes involved behaved like adults and actually talked to the other people instead of just fighting. And yeah, that is the case here. And yeah, maybe that should bother me, but it really, if it wasn't such a cool fight, and if it wasn't it's genuinely funny when they do realize, because it's why are you working for Thanos? Us working for, we thought you were working for Thanos. And ultimately it does basically make sense. One of them was waiting on Titan because they arrived there before Thanos did, and so they're waiting for him to get back so they can fight him there. And the others came to Titan to find Thanos, and they find these other guys there, so they're like, this is Thanos' planet, these guys must be with Thanos. It's yeah, both of them think, either they're waiting for Thanos and they're like, well, these guys must be working for Thanos, they just came before, or they came to the planet thinking anyone there must be working with Thanos. And I really love the, where is Gamora? Who is Gamora? Why is Gamora? He doesn't really understand, but he really wants to participate. He understands that they're asking WH questions followed by the words, is Gamora. So he really wants to participate in that. And Thor needs a new weapon, one capable of killing Thanos. And I also really appreciate that. I mean, hypothetically, if he hadn't lost Mjolnir, yeah, would he just have immediately gone for Thanos? And I also really like the thing, at the very start, he says, you'll die for that. And then there at the end, I told you you would die for that. Now, and, it turns out to be Peter Dinklage as, I forget his name, but yeah, the guy helping build weapons. And, Stormbreaker from A Dying Star. And he says, supposedly it can also activate Bifrost. And yeah, there at the end, he activates Bifrost. And that's also, I mean, literally the moment that Stormbreaker is done, he immediately uses Bifrost to go back to Earth to attack Thanos. So that's, yeah, really great. And I also really, I think some people haven't been happy with how Thor's been treated in the team up movies, and maybe just in general, he hasn't been enough of like when he shows up, everything changed. I mean, he's the Prince of Asgard in as of the end of Ragnarok, the King of Asgard. You know, well, almost the beginning of Ragnarok, I guess, as soon as he outs his brother. Obviously, he's going to be impressive, and in this, they really give him that, I mean, he turns the tide of that battle against the aliens. If he hadn't shown up, the Avengers would have lost. And I like them talking about how the plan's gonna go, and and Tony calls them Mr. Clean and Mr. Lord because he's bald and has, yeah. And he's like, not Mr. Lord. Please, Mr. Lord was my father. Just call me a plain old star. Mr. Lord was my grandpappy. You can call me Mr. Just call me G. Yeah. Let's see. Right, and yeah, and Quill is like, oh, yeah, it's like, I think, yeah, they talk about, oh, is it Mantis who mentions Footloose? One of them mentions Footloose, and it's like, oh, like Footloose. And Peter's like, oh, right, Footloose. And, like, Quill is like, is it still the best movie ever made? And Peter's like, it never was. It's really funny, because Quill is like, finally, someone understands the references I'm always dropping. And Peter's like, dude, just, no. and you see Doctor Strange looking a little strangely, and he says, there's 14 million different versions of this battle. Are there any of them where we win? One, Now, and I was really happy to see Red Skull again. You see he protects the soul gem, and he is talking like he's been there for ages, and he really, when last we saw him, he was like, this is amazing, and now he's like, it takes a toll on you, and yeah, I'm not sure it's Hugo Weaving playing him again, but certainly the makeup and voice are similar. I do have to wonder, was he transported directly here at the end of Camp 1, like, rather, I guess this is where he was transported at the end of Camp 1. Meanwhile, has he been living here since the 1940s? I mean, Cap and Bucky were frozen, that's why they're still around. Now, and I like also the reveal of it, because at first, he maybe sounds a little familiar, but he's completely in black, and then you see the face a little, and immediately you realize who it is. And turns out Thanos has to kill a loved one for the soul gem, and Gamora is like, you lose because you love no one. And, tears, really? They're not for him. That was devastating. And, yeah, and it does hurt. He does not want to do it, but he feels he has to. And again, that's such a great... He genuinely... It could so easily be like, you have to kill someone you love, like Gamora, and just he immediately throws... But instead, it clearly devastates him. And the Avengers land in Wakanda. We again hear the Avengers theme. And I love that Shuri is just so much smarter than the Avengers, and she's like, I'm sure you did the best you could. Like, like if like you're talking to a child who like it's so yeah, she's awesome. She's absolutely awesome, and she's like, why didn't you just like it's the most obvious thing in the world, like just all you had to do was this. Well, why I don't understand why you didn't just do that. It's like I can do it, but it's gonna take a little while. yeah, and the fight in Wakanda is to keep Vision safe while Shuri removes the gem. And finally, Thor gets the Stormbreaker. And, you know, the alien soldiers throw themselves at the barriers that kill them, you know, trying to see if at least parts of them can go through and then they can keep them, you know. Reminds me of this kind of cell doors in Thor the Dark World, you know, where also pressed up against, you know, eventually it'll, yeah. And then they open the front of the barrier because they're like, yeah, how do we keep them in front of us? By letting them in. And we have hundreds of aliens versus the good guys. It's an amazing scene. I legitimately, it delivered completely on what I hoped from the trailers, and it's one of my absolute favorite action scenes of all time. This movie has a lot of my absolute favorite action scenes of all time in it. And, you know, Thor is like standing there in the middle holding the thing, you know. Chris Hemsworth really has star power. That's terrible. And the movie's cutting between the, you know, what is reminiscent of the Phantom Menace Battle of Naboo, you know, the nature, and then other scenes like Star Wars and less like Avengers. You know, we're not used to them Avengers cutting between different scenes taking place in different places like this. So, yeah. And yeah, and Thor arrives and defeats hundreds of aliens, you know. And I mean, at the end of the day, that he did do that in the first Avengers movie. It's just that a lot of it was off screen, where meanwhile the movie is very eager to show Iron Man killing, you know. But yeah, I still love the first two Avengers. And Thanos fights the Space Avengers with some really close quarters stuff. And, you know, you have Doctor Strange creating teleport portals for Spider-Man. I liked it. The scene is a lot shorter than Days of Future Past. I don't think they were trying to outdo that fight. Excuse me, am I still up? Sorry. I'm not trying to be off screen, it's just awkward setup here. I don't think they were trying to outdo that fight. Ultimately, if they didn't have anything like it in this, people would ask, why didn't they use Doctor Strange's teleport, you know, in the fight, you know? But in that movie, it's very much that the fact that Polaris is there making all these portals, it's a game changer. You know, it hugely changes how they fight. Here, it's like, yeah, sure, you can try to use that against Thanos, but it's not going to work for very long. You know, he hits him like 3 times or something, and then Thanos stops him. And again, it's a good scene in Days of Future Past. You know, that scene is also not about fighting a single extremely powerful individual. It's about continuing to fight these, you know, robots that are gonna keep coming. Now, and they attack the gauntlet and try to keep him from using it, because ultimately, if he can't, like, you know, yeah, I think he has to like make a fist to use the powers, and if they keep him from closing his hands, yeah, and all of them attack at once, and the scene is so much better than anything in the X-Men franchise. I'm sorry, seriously, X-Men franchise producers, take note. This is how you do it. It's just so much better, and it's amazing. And again, keeping in mind, when I was a kid, I was more into the X-Men than I was into the Avengers. You know, with the obvious exception that you know, Spider-Man's my absolute favorite, and he's sometimes an Avenger. But let's see, and you know, Quill is like, where is Gamora? And Nebula, you know, Nebula can be really devastating with these cold, logical, Obviously, Thanos killed her. They both went to get the Soul Stone. He returned without her, but with the Soul Stone. Obviously, he killed her. And Quill goes against the plan. And again, this is... I didn't find it frustrating while watching, but I can imagine some might, and they're not really wrong as such, but, you know, I don't know, I feel like it worked for character wise, and ultimately it's, you know, it's how much Gamora means to him, and that I don't object to. Now, and yeah, this is easily the best team-up action I've ever seen in a movie. This is what I dreamt of seeing in a movie when I read the comics as a teenager. And I like that, you know, once again, Rocket spins while firing, but this time it's with Bucky rather than Groot. And I really like Steve is, you know, I forget, someone says, you know, tree dude or something, and Groot goes, I am Groot, and Steve goes, I am Steve Rogers, because he's just so, you know, I mean, so many other people would be like, that's a weirdly formal way to introduce yourself, and this is not really the time for introductions, but Steve is like, oh, what a polite thing to say. I'm gonna introduce myself. It's just, I will, as long as they keep being this good, I am never gonna tire of Groot jokes. It's just that one might be my favorite. I am Groot. I am Steve Rogers. He's just so... Steve is just such a nice guy. So like, yeah. Now, and the cars that kind of spin to get in there, those are very Star Warsy, I gotta say. And, you know, Thor and Steve briefly talk beards. Also really like that. And, you know, you've got Black Widow and, I'm sorry, I forget her name, Okoye, the general, fighting to defend Scarlet Witch from one of Thanos' children. And Banner still cannot Hulk out. And then he uses the Hulkbuster glove to kill one of Thanos' children. I do think that there may be too many Thanos' children deaths in a short space of time. I'm fairly certain 3 of them died in a very short space of time, in just minutes. I'm sorry, I think, you know what? If some of the... I would say they should have placed at least one of them earlier in the film. And maybe one of the ones here at the end should have been just a longer fight between good guys and Thanos' children. But, you know, I'm not against it. By the end of the movie, Thanos is the only one left on his side. His children died, and seems like his army is basically completely gone. Certainly everyone... No one is worried about the army there at the very end. You know, they're worried that their buddies are disappearing. And let's see. And Doctor Strange uses his magic against the gauntlet. And Thanos is like, it's a fake. And we have Iron Man versus Thanos, and Thanos stabs Tony with one of the bleeding edge parts. And, you know, Doctor Strange says, spare Tony's life, I'll give you the stone. Really channeling the MCU fandom there. I have to admit, having watched the rest of the movie, I don't really understand why he did give it to him. Maybe it'll be explained in the next one. I mean, it seems like they lost here at the end. I mean, there's still some Avengers left alive, yes, but Thanos got the glove. Yeah, I guess, actually, to be fair, maybe if he hadn't given him the stone, other Avengers would be dead now that, you know, that did survive, because he didn't kill them and because they didn't die when he snapped his fingers. And what Strange saw, them doing better, that happens in the future. Now, let's see. Maybe next time I should just turn the camera more this way. Yeah. Now, that's the thing. I think it's a little annoying that we end the movie without us knowing what the idea is, what the plan is from that. Honestly, I think it would have been... Actually, I guess if we hadn't seen how he got it, but it just suddenly he had it, that would have been frustrating as well. But yeah. And Thanos teleports to Earth, and we see in Wakanda the Avengers fight Thanos, and he's only missing one stone, and he basically wipes the floor with them. And I mean, when Steve catches the gauntlet, you know, that's super cool and looked really great in the ads. I mean, I guess we really should have figured, obviously, it's just gonna punch Steve with the free arm, you know, but yeah. I saw one reviewer point out that Thanos punches just about everybody. And let's see, and the movie works as, you know, emotionally as well as on action. We really get into the emotional stuff, and yeah. And Wanda pulls the gem from Vision's head and destroys it. Thanos isn't even upset. He simply rewinds time to where it's whole. And I really appreciate that they didn't overuse that. There's not actually all that much time manipulation in the movie. You know, excuse me, Strange looks forward in time to see if they ever win, and Thanos rewinds time to make the gem whole. And I also appreciate that it's possible it'll happen in the next one, but I would like them not to just rewind time and bring someone back to life that died. I think that would just feel cheap. Yes, I realize it happens in the comics. There are other things that happen in the comics that I don't think would work satisfyingly on the big screen. But yeah, he rewinds time and rips it out of Vision's head, killing him without any hesitation. And Thor stabs Thanos through the chest, but he points out, "You should have gone for my head," you know. And Thanos snaps his fingers, and we get this thing where, like, we get this creepy, like, vision where Child Gamora asks him, "Did you do it?" "Yes." "What did it cost?" "Everything." And then, you know, the gauntlet looks like partially broken or something, but he can still teleport, so he can at least use that one stone. But yeah, it's not quite clear. And then we see him there at the end. He doesn't have any stones, I don't think. He's just sitting there. Now, but I appreciate that, you know, he's not like going, "Wahaha, I have won." No, he's sitting there calmly. You know, contemplative, really. He did what he wanted to do. And people start disappearing, basically turning to dust, and a lot of our favorite characters die. And I appreciate that almost no characters other than the children of Thanos died before the very end of the movie. And really, even those, yeah, certainly every single character in this got to do something memorable before they died. The only ones that died early were Loki, Heimdall, and Gamora. And not only, but yeah, that's not a lot of people, you know. And Loki threatened to stab Thanos, you know, almost stabbed Thanos. Heimdall saved Hulk, which again saved the day. And Gamora, you know, there's a long list of really cool stuff she did in the movie before dying. And a lot of it involves her defying Thanos, even when he's literally, like, yeah. Like, really, the only time she ever seems like she's scared of him or scared of what he, you know, that where she doesn't openly defy him is when he's torturing Nebula. That's basically it. She doesn't even really beg for mercy when he's going to kill her. She's clearly scared, but yeah. Now, I think that was the smart way to go about it, but I would understand if they choose to do it differently in the next one, depending on, how many die there. But yeah, honestly, my feeling on it is probably time travel and or alternate universes will come into play in order to give the, provide more Avengers. I don't know how I'd feel about them just outright undoing stuff that happened in this movie, though I get that that means that a lot of the MCU is dead. But if they just straight up undo it, I mean, ultimately, this entire movie is about them trying to prevent it from happening, but then it still happened. If they just undo it, then you could argue that this whole movie doesn't really, depending on how far they go back. Yeah, I don't really want to see them do that now. But that's another thing. I mean, we don't know very much about upcoming MCU. Is this just how they're going to leave it? Or maybe the next one will bring in a little bit of backup from, like, alternate universes or whatever, but then it'll still end with very few alive. I don't know. Now, let's see. Yeah, Doctor Strange says there was no other way. And Peter's death was just so heartbreaking. Just he's lying there like, please, I don't want to die. That's, yeah. Now, the shot of the Avengers running at the camera was in the trailer, but not in the film. I'm not really upset. We got most of those characters fighting alongside each other. Maybe that shot was always just, for trailers and such. I mean, the only thing that's in the shot that isn't at all in the movie is Hulk fighting in Wakanda. That's literally the only thing in that shot. You've got Falcon, you've got War Machine, Black Panther, Winter Soldier, Captain America, and Okoye all fighting alongside, and then the Wakandan army, and all of those do fight in that scene. So yeah, no Ant-Man, no Hawkeye. So I guess they're saving those parts for the next one. I mean, I could swear they said that Hawkeye was gonna have a part. I guess that's maybe for the next one, or maybe it is just. I guess it's possible that like stuff was changed or something. Now, yeah, and wondering if the ending will be undone by part 2, and noting that this is very much part 1. It's not the full story, and it's gonna frustrate some people. And I have to wonder, will part 2 also end with the bad guy winning? I do doubt very much that it will be just stopping Thanos from getting the gems again. If it is like time travel or something, I'm sure something else will. They're not going to have 2 movies that work in this manner, with it's about stopping him from, yeah. And we get the post-credit scene of Nick Fury and Maria Hill in New York, and people start disappearing. And he starts to say "Mother," and is cut off, which I appreciate. And he sent a red alert, and it was received, and the response is a symbol. Is that Captain Marvel's symbol? I mean, she is powerful. It would make sense that she would be backup and major, But in that case, couldn't she have been called in earlier in the movie? I mean, it didn't happen that fast. I mean, certainly some hours passed, maybe a day or two, from the start of this movie to the end. So, I mean, did no one but Fury and Hill know about her? Why wouldn't they tell? I guess that might be explained in her solo movie, why no one else knew about her, if that is the case. Now, moving on. Yeah, I'm going to try to do as much as I can tonight. And characters. Now, the 3D is amazing. It really, there's a lot of depth to the action scenes. I would definitely go for 3D. And yeah, this very much lives up to the hype. And Even before we saw the first trailer, we were really psyched to see this. And the first trailer and the second one, and the TV spots, amazing. You know, Iron Man 1 teased that we'd actually get an on-screen The Avengers, then The Avengers 1 teased Thanos. So this movie has been built to since 2008, for a decade and 18 movies. And, is Incredible Hulk canon? Yeah, certainly Avengers 1 and 2 makes references that suggest it is. Now, I was wondering if this was going to have strange descriptive captions, like, Captain America 2 and 3, also by these two directors. They're overly detailed in Captain America 2 with, exact coordinates, longitude, latitude, I think those are, and huge screen-filling names of cities in Cap 3, and I appreciate that in this one they got it right. It's names of cities and places, and it's just normal, in the bottom of the screen, kind of, yeah. And I appreciate that the plot starts immediately. This comes running out the gate, like the first two Avengers movies as well. And while Thanos himself does not go to Earth very early, his children do almost immediately. Now, maybe it was hinted at or something, maybe I missed it. I didn't feel like we were really told why Thanos is only arriving now. At the end of Avengers 1, he got the idea of the Infinity War when Loki failed again. The Tesseract, his minion tells him, to attack the humans would be to court death, which made him smile. By the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 1, he knows Ronan won't get him the orb. Get the fine, I'll do it myself, as post-credit scene, Age of Ultron. What has he been doing between then and now? And there's a great comic also, I believe, on College Humor of, like, he's putting on his shoes and putting on his coat, and, he has to deal with traffic. It's very funny. Now, but yeah, why didn't he go for Earth immediately after Loki failed? The one thing I can figure is he was maybe waiting for the Tesseract to leave Asgard, as it would be easier to get to off Asgard. Maybe he was waiting for Civil War to weaken the Avengers themselves. The thing is, my God, I gotta sit slightly differently. My back's not loving this. There we go. I get that Loki and Ronan were just ways for him to, he doesn't want to have to. Basically, from the moment he starts to go for the gems, at least as it appears in this, yeah, I mean, certainly the people of Earth, the Avengers, realize very quickly that that's what's going on. And, I mean, the Tesseract, yeah, if he had gone for the Tesseract instead of Loki, if he had just himself gone, certainly would have met a lot of resistance, and let's see. There's also, did he know that by giving Loki the scepter, he was giving him an Infinity Gem? Why would you jeopardize 2 Infinity Gems? Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I figure maybe he was waiting for the Tesseract to leave Asgard, and let's see. And certainly he seems to have an easy time finding Infinity Gems. The only Infinity Gem he needs help to find is the Soul Gem. Literally he sends his children to Earth, and they zero in on them at just nothing. Now, excuse me. Now, I was wondering if this movie was going to have any 9/11 porn, like in DCU movies and some big Marvel movies. There at the start, was there maybe a little when it's in New York? I'm not. I mean, is it 9/11 porn or is it just collateral damage? But I'm not entirely sure. But as I figured, the movie would probably have a lot of scenes of the good guys losing, like Mission Impossible 4, and yeah, it does indeed. And I figured the movie would move incredibly fast, such as Captain America 2 and 3 do, also by the same directors. And since this one has way more characters and almost definitely, yeah, I was wondering if they would have more locations. I mean, it doesn't really, does it? Oh wait, actually, I guess we got the Soul Stone, New York, Titan, Wakanda, and the place where Thor gets his groove back. Yeah, that's a reasonable amount. But yeah, and in those two movies, some events that need to have happened are not shown because the film would end up too long if we saw them, especially in Civil War. But tone, character moments, impact is not at all lost. They don't speed through the important things, and they have a dark tone and depth. And yeah, I would have to say this does all those things, and yet again does them right as well. And yeah, all the other MCU movies have been accused of going out of their way to set up later stuff, and sometimes that's accurate. They've basically all been setting this one up, so, I was wondering if this one then would not spend a lot of time setting up later stuff, and whether it would manage well all the stuff set up. And, I mean, it does still set up, and it wouldn't work as a movie if it didn't have any setup, But yeah, I would say it does well with the stuff that's been set up in the other ones. And a summer blockbuster climax should leave the audience exhilarated, should pay off on setups, should not lose track of the characters both good and evil, and should not devolve into stuff that's cool to watch if the conflict plot isn't progressed by what we're watching. And this very much lives up to those. And yeah, the Guardians are in a scene scored perfectly to an 80s song. If it hadn't, it would be the first film they play a major role in that doesn't. Although here, they sing along to it a little, and then it isn't as big of a thing as in the two Guardians movies. But it didn't bother me, I guess you could say, even though I loved that in those two movies. And I was wondering if the Sokovia Accords would slow down Avengers reuniting, and I appreciate that even particularly. But I would understand if people felt like that whole thing was just hand-waved away. But, they're in a different place, and it's an interesting place in this movie because of it. Now, there have been movies based on that comics, but, I was wondering if this would truly be, as unseen before, the movie equivalent to an event comic, or if it would try to be but fail to reach, and I would definitely say it reached that level. And as I'd hoped, the movie's constant awesomeness with lots of action. I was a little worried that it would be more wonder than plot or character development. There's definitely a lot of wonder, but no, I would say it does manage to balance. The character encounters are some of what we most want to see in this, and it really delivers on that. And I don't think anyone was acting out of character. And some of the characters we do see in interesting new situations. I really, really liked seeing Wanda and Vision together. I have to admit, I really thought that was a dream. But yeah, I mean, if he can make his skin diamond or make it so that things pass through, I guess it makes sense that he could make himself look like he had regular human skin. And yeah, that's basically what both of them want. He wishes he was human. For people who haven't really, who don't know a lot about Vision, he's basically Data. He really wants, from Star Trek: The Next Generation, he really wants to be human. And Wanda wants him to be human. So, yeah. And yeah, some of the characters are different, than last time we saw them, and I would say we always buy it now. So I think maybe Watch Mojo or something critic pointed out that both of Joss Whedon's Avengers movies showed the Avengers members through Whedon's lens rather than their real character, and he said we see the real character here. I would have to agree. Now, the movie does not have a lot of collateral damage. Some have said it's overstuffed, like, say, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is. I don't think... There isn't anything I would remove from this. Amazing Spider-Man 2, I still maintain there's a lot of good to that movie, but ultimately, there's definitely some stuff that should have been combined or completely removed. Yeah, that movie is overstuffed. And someone said it's completely different from Avengers 1 2, and didn't expect it to be like this. Certainly in some ways, yes. I wouldn't say that this movie was completely different from what I expected, but I don't mean that in a bad way. I wasn't unhappy with it. Now, let's see. Yeah, and I really appreciate that the movie ends with a snap of Thanos' fingers in the full Infinity Gauntlet. And, in the comics, by doing so, he kills half the life in the universe. And I was wondering if that would make sense with this changed background motivation, and it does still make sense. I never questioned it. And yeah, I really appreciate it. It would have been so frustrating if he had only gotten part of the way there or something, because, I mean, ultimately, of course Thanos is going to keep, he's going to beat them really, yeah, he's that powerful. I just hope that I was wondering if maybe it was going to be like The Dark Knight Rises kind of situation where, yeah, the bad guy wins early on, and then the good guy manages to defeat him still within that same movie. But, yeah. Now, let's see. I don't know if, I could imagine some other people might be. I didn't mind that, in the first trailer, Thanos says, in time, you will know what it is to lose. In the movie, he says, I know what it's like to lose. We get that entire monologue at the very start of the movie. I thought that really worked. I get why they changed it for the trailer, but I was never unhappy with, he still says these really menacing things. He still says, I hope they remember you, and yeah. Now, Thor Ragnarok, the ending and then the mid-credits scene, it's somewhat like the ending of Resident Evil Afterlife, and I didn't think it would really happen, but I couldn't help but, imagine, what if it did the Resident Evil Retribution follow-up thing of completely wasting the potential for, really awesome action. Yeah, actually, I mean, I guess they could have had the scene show the slaughter of all the Asgardians, but ultimately, it's not really... The important part is that it happens. It's not as though, we actually see the Thanos versus Hulk fight. That would be really annoying if we were only told. Same as we don't see the raid on Xandar. We don't really need to. I don't see why Thanos would have particularly had trouble with it, with the children of Thanos and with the massive army that he uses near the end, in Wakanda. But yeah, some of this stuff is from right after watching Ragnarok. I figured that Thanos would kill basically everyone on Loki and Thor's ship, including the Asgardian civilians. It would make clear things have gotten real. Ragnarok, the film ends with the destruction of Asgard. If this opens with the genocide of almost all Asgardians, that would send that signal and would develop Thor, and if she survives, which I hope she does, Valkyrie. They're not merely homeless, but also the only surviving Asgardians. And Thor being halfway on Earth, halfway cosmic space has been the problem with this character in literally every single of the, before this, 5 movies that he makes more than a cameo appearance in. So, yeah. And also, I mean, obviously, Korg and Meek, there are characters there that were, Scourge died. He sacrificed himself. And we do see the fate of Heimdall. But, yeah, Valkyrie and Korg and Meek, you know, it's too bad that we don't see more of it. But I wouldn't necessarily have expected to see more of Korg and Meek. But yeah, let's see. And yeah, Loki has been in 3 movies prior to this one. Was the main villain, had a huge presence in 2 of them. So I'm glad, you know, I figured, you know, put him on the bench for now. Maybe don't kill him at least yet. Please do not give him a big role in the movie, or at least many scenes where Thanos plays a big role. Thanos rocks, but his personality is much less fun than Loki's. And definitely do not try to make Thanos out Loki to compensate. Though, you know, with more serious Russo Brothers writing directing, I didn't really see that happening. But yeah, I really appreciate that he's not, he really isn't that similar to Loki at all. And yeah, you know, Loki's in all 3 Thor movies. The only MCU movie that Thor's in, again, more than a cameo, that Loki isn't in, is Age of Ultron, and he apparently had a cameo, which was merely cut. You know, he doesn't appear in Thor's mid-credit cameo in Doctor Strange. He is mentioned, and in a way that makes it clear that he'll be around. Sylvie gets neither in Doctor Strange, but other than Ragnarok, he is in every movie Thor's in. And yeah, you know, I hope, as it happened, Loki is killed by Thanos at the very start of this, to further make you want him defeated, to make it clear that major characters will die. Because what is there left to do with him? The relationship between him, Thor, and Odin is interesting in Ragnarok, but he barely betrays or does anything Loki-like in the whole film. He just pretends not to know Thor and tries to flee in a ship, and Thor leaves him behind. Now, but yeah, you know, the only thing that was particularly interesting was the addition of Hela. If Hela hadn't been in Ragnarok, if it had just been the, you know, them on Sakaar and such, it really wouldn't have been interesting. But you know, the thing with, you know, you don't look like him, you sound like him. Kneel before your queen. But yeah, you know, Heimdall, on the other hand, does get to affect the plot. For seeing Loki stealing the throne, the coming Ragnarok, he goes into hiding, saving regular Asgardians from Hela's wrath by hiding them too. He steals the sword used to open Bifrost so that Hela can't start conquering. And, you know, I was wondering if Thanos was going to be, like, out for Loki's blood. Loki failed to get in the Tesseract, even though Thanos delivered Loki the armor and the scepter as agreed. So yeah, I do think that they could have made that a bigger, like, it's a major thing in, let's see, I mean, ultimately in the, there we go, in the first Avengers movie, you know, I think he's called the Other, you know, the guy who speaks for Thanos, you know, he says, you know, the humans will burn, you, Loki, will suffer if you fail, you're nothing, we're amazing, and then there at the end he says, you know, to attack the humans is like to, what's it called? Court death. And yeah, ultimately, you know, human beings didn't burn, and the court death just made Thanos want it more. So the big thing left is that Loki was gonna really suffer. You know, it's that thing. There's no crevice, no barren moon where you can hide, and he'll make you long for something as sweet as pain. And then in this, I mean, if you hadn't watched or have forgotten the first Avengers movie, you might have thought that Thanos barely knew about Loki at all. And I appreciate we get cool new Iron Man tech, as each MCU film with Iron Man has introduced at least some new Iron Man tech, and here's the bleeding edge armor. And, you know, Drax tries to kill Thanos, as he has vowed to do, to avenge his family. I didn't expect him to succeed, but I do appreciate that he gets to try at least, because that would be annoying, you know. We are 2 Chris's, Noel and Pine, and a Christmas release date short of the Chris's, you know, the Google Plus article 15 times Tumblr gave us a deeper understanding of Chris Pratt. Now, Steve hasn't said Avengers assemble in the MCU yet, and I was wondering if he would here to get the different Avenger factions to work together, excuse me, to fight Thanos. And the movie has an insane amount of characters, and the Avengers themselves and the villain must get the most focus and screen time. I was wondering, and this is of course a big thing, will we be disappointed with how much screen time others get? Age of Ultron and Civil War did rather well in avoiding that, even though some characters were just barely in it. Rhodey in Age of Ultron, Ant-Man, Civil War. There isn't anyone in this that I was disappointed I didn't get to see much of. I mean, if I had to say so, I did have a little bit of trouble keeping track of Thanos' children, where the different ones were, and maybe also a little bit what they could do and such. I'm not sure that could really be helped. I'm not saying that any of them should be removed, because they're all awesome, but I think that's basically just a thing of, like, the next time I watch the movie, and I'm definitely watching it again, yeah, I'll have an easier time of keeping, and it's also everyone else we already know the abilities of, more or less. The Spidey, I love that they gave him the extra legs. Is that what they're going? I remember it from I read Civil War when it came out. That's where in the comics Tony gives him that suit. In MCU Civil War he also gives him a new suit, but it's not that one yet. Now, yeah, I don't think there was really anyone that I was disappointed to not see much of in this. Do I think it could have been helped? They should have taken time away from other specific ones. I mean, obviously some people are going to be disappointed because there are so many major characters. There are so many fan favorite characters. Not everyone is going to be able to get as much time as the fans want. But I don't think that has to be a problem. It's just about having realistic expectations. Similar to, like, if you watch a movie from 20 or 30 years ago, obviously the effects are not going to be as advanced as today. That's just how it is. Yeah, I think they did really well. There was no point in this where I felt that it was really, and honestly, it also shows almost all the characters, at least briefly, from very early on. You get, let's see, I mean, the movie opens on Thor and Loki. Very shortly thereafter, you have Earth with Tony and Doctor Strange, and not long after that, you have the Guardians. And yeah, so everyone's introduced fairly early on. You don't sit there waiting for character to be. Yeah, and Steve and the other Avengers and Black Panther and such soon after that. Now, but yeah, this manages to make them all matter, something every X-Men movie so far has failed to do, even though most of them try. And not every major character can get, like, a character arc and personal growth vital to the plot, but the right ones are given them, I'd say, most. I mean, really, let's see. I'm not going to spend forever on this because I didn't write notes specific to with details for this. Let's see. Quill, Nebula, Gamora, Tony, Strange, Peter. Let's see. I guess those are more or less it. I'm not sure Rocket and Groot, Thor. Yeah, I'm not sure. Those are the ones that I would say definitely have. Yeah. Excuse me. Character arc and personal growth vital to the plot. Honestly, the others probably do as well. Again, I only just watched it and I only watched it once, but I don't think there's any major character that's just truly completely shafted. Now, let's see. I was wondering if Steve would find a way to attempt to but survive doing, heroically sacrifice himself on something flying through the air soon to crash. You know, he does in his first two solo movies. And, you know, I was wondering, since he's now a criminal, would Cap go against the US government? He does in, you know, in the first, yeah, yes, briefly go through his first solo movie, only mildly to rescue people. He does in Avengers 1, Winter Soldier, and Civil War, and he couldn't particularly have done so in Age of Ultron. He isn't really working for the government in that one, so, you know, yeah, it really is a pattern with him. And, yeah, you know, due to the current atmosphere of the government is corrupt, which for most of the modern world is true to some extent, and especially in the US. As far as supposedly democratic countries go, you know, obviously there are none openly non-democratic, anti-democratic countries that are far more corrupt. Whenever S.H.I.E.L.D. and or Black Widow is involved, they ready and or use weapons like pistols and others that fire bullets, even though in most cases they're fighting enemies where it doesn't seem like they do a lot of good. In these movies, anyway. I get that normally they fight enemies. Yeah. And I was wondering if that would get a teasing comment in this, how Age of Ultron teased Hawkeye fighting robots with a bow and arrow. And, you know, certainly they know now not to waste bullets on beings like Asgardian gods. You know, didn't do a lot of good at the start of the Avengers. And since Fury lived that, he could have forwarded that info. And, I mean, let's see. In this, Black Widow, does she even use guns even once? I think she almost all I think almost all of her action in this is her physically fighting. Now, the 16th of 8th last year, I rewatched 28 Weeks Later just because, and it made me wonder how many movies have Jeremy Renner played like a sniper or sharpshooter in any way. That, SWAT, all the MCU ones, and other military types in The Hurt Locker, Mission Impossible Twice, The Bourne Legacy, and its actual sequel supposedly coming up. And he's frequently playing one who doesn't play by the rules, goes against orders or something. They really should have seen coming him signing against the government in Civil War. And let's see. Did Star-Lord end up going to Earth? I mean, he was he still on Titan at the end of the movie? I guess maybe. You know, the big thing there is it emotional and played straight, as hinted at in Guardians 2? I could imagine something like that would fit better in Guardians 3, but yeah. And, you know, people have wondered if this is the last Chris Hemsworth film. His contract will be up soon. I think he survived excuse me, and I know Bucky didn't. Bucky disappeared. But, yeah. And this does not have anyone or anything Hydra. It's the first time any MCU film where Cap makes more than a cameo appearance. You know, there's no Hydra in Thor the Dark World or Spider-Man Homecoming. But other than that, you know, yeah, those are the cameos. Not to have anyone or anything Hydra. Literally, every single one of them. It's, yeah, again, it really follows them around. And I was hoping they wouldn't, you know, either don't resurrect anyone who dies in this or that they make it extremely limited. Some say that the MCU already lacks consequences and a sense of mortality for the good guys. And certainly, I mean, not a lot of major characters have died and stayed dead in these movies other than the villains. And, you know, I mean, the villain is defeated by the end of the superhero movie. That's not, you know, that's not a surprise, you know. I was surprised when Quicksilver died, for example, because he was a good guy by then. And, you know, in interviews, the cast promised, you know, at least one fight that's 25 times the airport scene in Civil War. And I would guess that's the Wakanda, yeah, and some way bigger fights than that Civil War scene. And, yeah, I mean, certainly the various ones where there are several Avengers or Guardians fighting, yeah, some of them are definitely bigger than the Civil War airport scene. And yeah, I was like, I hope they still manage to make them possible to follow. Honestly, the airport Civil War scene is, in my opinion, near the top, possibly number one, the best action scenes of the entire history of action films, the half a century entirety of the history. So many elements balanced so well, you can follow it all. It builds on what we know from almost a decade's worth of films. Now, in this, I would say the climax, I mean, certainly it gets bigger than that scene. Is it also better? I mean, the thing that I feel like that scene gets that I'm not sure I'd say this one quite gets to that level is that everyone's constantly countering everyone else. Where in the Wakanda scene, a lot of it is that they're fighting these aliens that don't have abilities, or there's like 2 or 3 of the good guys fighting one of Thanos' children and such. And yeah, it's just not the same. I don't think they were really trying to top it like that, and I'm not sure. I don't know that I think they really could, but yeah. Now, let's see. Yeah, you know, the Wakandan army scene in the trailer seemed like there'd be 7 or so big, MCU names, which, you know, the airport scene has 12, although, you know, technically 11 since Vision barely appears, since he's so overpowered compared to everyone else. Now, and yeah, Hulk does indeed get to fight something big or powerful. You know, every MCU movie featuring Hulk, and also the Ang Lee one, has that. And in this, it's Thanos, and it's right away. But in this, Hulk does not attack an ally or non-enemy. He does in every MCU appearance up to this point, despite at other times in the movie clearly being able to guide it. I'm not saying it's always, you know, I feel they've kept it from being, you know, poorly written and such. But yeah, I realize it's a big part of the character, but maybe it's time to do without it. And yeah, they kind of did do without it. Or it has to be really intense, make you fear that he'll kill the other. Ultimately, we didn't expect him to in Age of Ultron or Thor Ragnarok. In Age of Ultron, the real threat was him killing innocents and the effect that would have on Bruce's conscience and of the Avengers' image. And yeah, I was wondering if Hulk would get turned on Thor in the ship. And it is too bad it's too late to have him hit Cap's shield and for the Force to be absorbed, similar to how Thor hit it with Mjolnir in Avengers 1, and hit it intentionally as an attack in Avengers 2. And Tony does get at least one memorable monologue to an audience and or other characters. He does in every non-cameo appearance in the MCU so far. And yeah, I would definitely say when he's talking to other of the major characters, at least some of that qualifies as memorable monologue. I can't believe I didn't realize until this most recent viewing of Iron Man 2, despite the other movie coming out a few years ago. In Iron Man 2, the Invisible Woman sneaks something past Iron Man. Yeah. On the Iron Man 2 disc DVD, The Iron Man 1 2-disc DVD. Robert Downey Jr. talks about that he's, at the time, in good enough shape to do the physical stuff, but that in 10 years we'll need to do it CG. Was he right, and does it show? Does it feel limited by that? I can imagine that a lot of the Iron Man action in this is CG, or possibly a body double doing the motion capture. I didn't think it was all that obvious personally, but yeah. Now, in Iron Man 3 and Age of Ultron, Tony became self-destructive out of a strong fear that something would come through the wormhole. In this movie, basically something does come through, albeit possibly, yeah, not through the wormhole itself as, yeah. Now, does the movie capitalize on the compelling drama of that, or the images from the nightmare vision Scarlet Witch gave him in Age of Ultron reference? Do any come true? I mean, not, yeah, not hugely in the, yeah, I'd have to say that is something the movie could have done more with that. He doesn't, I don't know, I get maybe early on in the film when he's like, tell me his name again, and though, yeah, maybe actually, yeah, the next time I watch it, so it'll probably be in the next video for one of these, well, maybe not the very next one, but one of the next ones. Now, let's see. I really appreciate that we got to see the flying snake things again, and here they just shoot directly from. They don't jump off it before shooting. But yeah, do any come true? I guess not. Cap's shield broken since he doesn't have it. The images were the Avengers members from the first film lying dead except for himself. Cap briefly comes to life, says to him, "You could have saved us." Ragnarok had Thor, the character, kind of ignore the warning given until Surtur tells him he should look into it. Has Black Widow changed due to her vision in Age of Ultron? She confronts that they removed her uterus and ultimately stays with the Avengers despite this dehumanizing memory being brought to the forefront again. Cap admitted that he can't really figure out who he is if he doesn't have a war to fight, deadly conflict he can partake in. And, I was wondering if he took a break from that after Civil War. If not, where and how did he fight? Has he been alone? We know he freed the other team members. Did they stay together? If so, where did they go? What did they do? That really, we don't, unless I am misremembering, I don't think we were really told specifically what they did, but certainly they are still together. Scarlet Witch, Black Widow, sorry. It's because her Scarlett Johansson. Black Widow is with the other, yeah, with Falcon and Steve. So, yeah, the Avengers there are still together. And, I mean, they're definitely not out of practice from fighting, so I can imagine that they took, like, missions. Maybe they did the A-Team thing or something. But, yeah, that covers the 4 whose visions we saw. And, yeah, I was wondering if maybe Ragnarok could have revealed what Hulk saw to make him that scared, agitated. I maintain that we shouldn't see it, and I'm glad we haven't. Or it should be incredibly meaningful if we do, and I figured this movie could reveal it, and yeah, it hasn't. And yeah, the Blackguard are Thanos' lieutenants. In the comics, they are not, as they apparently will be in the MCU. Thanos' children. Excuse me. Meaning people he adopted as kids after slaughtering their parents and families, then brutally trained through their childhood with Metu, Gamora, and Nebula. Thus, we know some about their background and already have a kind of an idea of this kind of individual, and we realize that these are those of his children that turned out loyal to him. And yeah, and when you see the priest one talks about like how he's not worthy to do the whole, yeah. Excuse me. I thought I had gotten enough sleep. I don't know why I'm suddenly. Page 9 out of 19. So let's see if we can't. Now, I was wondering if Spider-Man might be forced to kill someone to stop Thanos. He put a lot of effort in not killing anyone in Homecoming, and he doesn't, and it's probably good. It probably should be in a Spider-Man sequel. Now, and does everyone have enough screen time, presence, and memorable events to satisfy him? I would say so, but others will definitely feel differently. Steve has always been driven to do the right thing. He takes responsibility for his actions and knows his team, whichever it is he's leading at the time, as a leader should, and that's still true. Tony's always been impulsive. His ideas are exciting, but he's reckless in carrying them out from Civil War on. He's trying to be more responsible, accept responsibility for the ideas and their results. And yeah, I'd say he tries to be responsible in this. He tries to keep Spider-Man safe from it, and yeah, I was wondering what have the Avengers been doing since Civil War. Have they been less active due to the board controlling when they go and take action? Do the board agree to let the Avengers deal with Thanos? Will they have to go against their decision on the World Council and the Avengers won? And yeah, they barely, the whole thing with the Accords is barely in the movie. I can understand people who would be frustrated that it was such a big deal in Civil War and then really isn't in this. There really should be a Captain America the Winter Soldier mod for Splinter Cell Blacklist based on the first big action scene, the one on the ship. Rewatching Captain America Winter Soldier, I'd forgotten Charles Whitmore was a member of the World Council. And there's a Hydra station in Lost. It's all coming together. Iron Man, despite his ranged weapon, often fights very up close, punching, sometimes kicking, flying into people, and he still does do that here. And even though when faced with aliens and enemies you wouldn't want to get close to, there he does tend to rely on ranged weapons. My new headcanon for Ego the Living Planet is that R.J. McCready was turned into a thing, somehow traveled back into space, and when he reached his planet, he calmed down, became the more well-adjusted Ego who visited Meredith Quill. And yes, I realize the timeline doesn't quite work out. And I was wondering if the Evil Army was going to be there from the start, and it would be the first MCU movie to have a real, massive presence like that from the start. And yeah, it does not. And let's see. What was I think it's a good idea to keep it, because then you just have the army standing around, basically. I appreciate that the movie does not have characters who came part in Civil War, so to be like, I don't trust you, and so I'll ignore the actual threat we're facing. Really, Steve could easily have said that he doesn't trust Tony anymore when, actually, yeah, it ends up being Banner who calls, but he might still think it's a trap, and yeah, that isn't the case. One of the complaints about the second film is that it's too similar to the first one. Excuse me. The team is torn apart, the team comes together. This one has the huge army of faceless minions that those two do, and as expected, Thanos doesn't quip. And yeah, other differences between this and the first two. I mean, it's a lot. There's more of a sense that the good guys won't be able to win than in those, I would say, and it's darker. Now, in Civil War, fighting allies notwithstanding, Rhodey was probably still relieved to get to use the suit on screen against something that wasn't a flying robot or another Iron Man suit. I think Teenage Groot is smarter than Baby Groot. I almost feel bad that Baby Groot did not get to meet Dummy, one of Tony Stark's robot arms that he uses for mechanical stuff. Now, they've managed to go 2 movies with both Scarlet Witch and Chris Evans without even once doing a nod to Push, the 2009 movie wherein Chris Evans has telekinesis like Scarlet Witch. He could say, can those deflect bullets? You can use those to avenge your father. And yeah, still no reference. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people don't want to remember that movie happened, so maybe that's why. A lot of people don't want to admit that Chris Evans played a superhero, or had superpowers in any movie before the first Captain America movie. And some would even like to forget that one. Now, apparently Thanos here lost his home planet through no fault of his own and is worried other planets will be destroyed. He isn't courting death, despite that being hinted at in the Avengers. So he's Jor-El if he survived the planet destruction. Both he and Superman were evil. Easier to swallow for a mainstream audience, but taking a lot of the character's appeal away from the fans. And he did smile at court death. Consumers Andrew Bridgman has said it's too bad Thanos won't be a nice guy villain. I personally agree, but honestly, I think a lot of the audience, I'm not saying specifically of this, but of mainstream movies are nice guys, and part of it may be not wanting to alienate them or make them feel as vilified as they deserve to be. So yeah, so they don't realize it. Yeah. Now, yeah, again, wondering if Quill would be forced to go to Earth. He said in Volume 2 he wouldn't do that. Or are they saving it for Volume 3? Why would they go to Earth in that, though? Since, this one, there actually is fighting on Earth, but yeah. And I really hope they do not kill off Hawkeye's family, not for drama, stakes, anything. And since none of them are in this, yeah, it might still happen in the 4th Avengers movie. And as Hawkeye is not in it, does not use Hawkeye's trigger as well, which, yeah, Avengers 1 did, Age of Ultron, maybe not so much. Not as much. Let's see, what's that? About a month ago? 3 weeks ago. There's this folder in Cinema here that said that in Infinity War, Thanos will use his deadly lightning. Did I forget that from the comics? Or did they guess, because he's called the Mad Titan, like Clash of the Titans? Wikipedia doesn't mention lightning, and no, he did not use lightning. Did he ever use anything electricity? I don't think. Now, let's see. Yeah, and on the 2nd of this month, I made notes. I don't mean to imply any values by this, merely being neutral, noting that they have these attributes. Going in order of cast list on IMDb. Nebula has a complicated family relationship with Gamora, but pure hatred of Thanos, and that's present here. Thanos has a superiority complex, willing to exterminate the planets in order to gain Infinity Stones. Also, sure, he's very much a teenager, excitable, loves tech. I'm just going to go through these and say if there's something that where this movie doesn't stick to. Yeah. Steve Rogers has a strong drive to do the right thing, no matter the consequences. Wanda Maximoff, sure of her own success in battle. Yeah, I guess there wasn't really that. But she does passionately love Vision, which is also a thing. Sasha Romanoff can never push away her awareness of her dark past as an assassin. I guess this one didn't really go into that. And T'Challa balancing the love of his own country with that of the rest of the world. I'd say there's some, yeah. Thor driven by keeping peace in the 9 realms. Yeah, not. It's more stopping Thanos here. Bucky feeling guilty about what he did as the Winter Soldier, which, yeah, not really. And Laura Barton isn't in it, but yeah, what I wrote was supportive of Hawkeye, but worried he'll get hurt. To start quipping and inventing something incredible, trouble controlling his personal life and vices. Yeah. Gamora, complicated relationship with Nebula, strong sense of honor. Okoye jumps at the chance to fight and protect Wakanda. Mantis is curious, sweet, but young, willing to use her power. Peter Parker is eager to fight, socially awkward. Clint Barton, again, yeah, just gonna fights to the very end, even if he almost dies by being overwhelmed. Loki uses tricks and manipulation to position himself in the most beneficial situation. Stephen Strange, driven to explore and solve problems, even if it requires unorthodox methods. Peter Quill, willing to give up what he wants the most to protect the galaxy. I guess, yeah, he was ready to kill Gamora. Heimdall driven to keep safe the people of Asgard. The Collector fascinated with the unusual. Let's Let's see. Friday, sarcastic. Was she in this? I'm not sure, but she didn't say very much in this either. Ramonda isn't really in this, devoted to Wakanda. Drax doesn't hold back. Groot, rude teenager, means well but often misunderstands communication, especially verbal with others. Yeah, that's not really in this. Scott Lang, eager, tries to go beyond boundaries. Rocket has trouble accepting others being friendly towards him, may need to be talked into doing the right thing, but then does it without hesitation, even if it's costly. Vision is fascinated with humanity. Excuse me. Hulk, always up for a fight. Happy Hogan, overzealous in doing his job. Pepper driven to do her job well. Yeah, you don't really see that in this. M'Baku, reluctant to trust T'Challa, but devoted to Wakanda. Wong, mostly humorless. And I quite like the bit about them talking about, which you gotta eat. Money, anything. Sam Wilson has Steve's back no matter what. Rhodey is primarily loyal to the military. Yeah, that's not really. I mean, in this, he specifically goes against at least the Accords. Let's see. Valkyrie, devoted to Asgard, albeit was disillusioned with it. Ned, excited to help Peter with the Spider-Man thing. Which, yeah, in this, he's just excitable. But, again, just briefly there. Like Avengers 1, Age of Ultron, Civil War doesn't introduce many new characters, especially villains. Certainly the Black Order make Thanos' will a reality, rather than there being much internal conflict there. Instead, using good guy characters we met before and building on what we know about them so it doesn't get overwhelming despite getting big. The Black Order members are the only characters in this we haven't met at any other point in the MCU except Peter Dinklage's character, which I already went into some. Everyone else, check via IMDb listing on the 1st of this month. And let's see. Yeah, a brief list of other MCU movies that split up people, counting ones that have more than 2 costume characters, since, very few of them have less than that. Let's see. Yeah, two costume characters, not a team, they're a hero and a sidekick. Thor 1, Captain America 1, Avengers 1, Thor 2, Captain America 2, Guardians of the Galaxy 1, Age of Ultron, Civil War, Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Ragnarok, Black Panther. For each of those, it worked out well. And this one as well also works. Does a good job at splitting up. Heroes of the show tended to pair off different characters over the course of the show. Nearly everyone got to spend at least some time with nearly every other individual. And I was wondering if that would happen here. And really, in this, it's mostly that the various... They have a few groups, and those groups don't particularly change, but they're interesting pairs, so that works. Steve and Sam have a Frodo-Samwise thing going on. Not gay, but soldiers who can relate to each other due to their time in the service. And then Bucky comes back into Steve's life, and yeah. Now, in Captain America 2, Nick Fury's call sign is apparently Foxtrot. Shouldn't it be Mike Foxtrot? Now, and in this, no one says you think you were the only one stalling, which they said in Age of Ultron, and I remember this being said in Civil War, but this most recent viewing, unless I missed it, wasn't there. Poor Bucky will now actually get to fire that assault rifle on screen, not only get it ready like in Civil War. And according to that movie's sign in the jet, it's Natasha's. I have to admit, before I saw that for sure, it is in the movie. It's, just look carefully, Before I saw that, I was like, who on the team would actually wield a thing like that? It's like the uniforms in X-Men Apocalypse in the facility where they get them, keeping that vague enough, I hope. We've never seen Natasha fire bullets from a weapon that was larger than a pistol, but, sure, there would be situations where, yeah. Now, in Captain America 2, at no more point in the movie does 20 consecutive minutes pass without action. I did not note if that was the case also for Civil War, but I would definitely say this. Some of the action gets a bit big in Winter Soldier, and it's maybe also a little bit too eager to always have action within, again, 20 minutes. Excuse me. I'd say both Civil War and this does better. Now, on the 9th of this month, I'm not certain I've said this about the MCU before. Let's see. Yeah, I'm just going to go through this. I'm not certain I've said this about the MCU before. I'm not sure I had to put words to it before recently. First off, I do love the best of the X-Men films, so the 3 that Bryan Singer directed that weren't Apocalypse. And I do want to underline, yes, the Quicksilver scene in Days of Future Past has a lot going for it. It's funny, it's memorable, nobody expected it. Like the Spanish Inquisition, it illustrates his powers really well. The song is perfectly chosen. It's the right length for the scene, and as far as I recall, and nobody expected the scene. Both unlike the Apocalypse redo. Now, this is what I also wrote in the. I didn't say this in the video on. Actually, I forget if it was Apocalypse or Days of Future Past. Anyway, I wrote it, and the film could have started with Magneto on the loose, or he could have been freed in a different way. Singer likes to highlight the especially cool powered mutants, but Quicksilver, while a ton of fun and an incredibly memorable scene, doesn't quote-unquote do anything, compared to Nightcrawler's few but important contributions to X2. At first, it's see how dangerous mutants are, and once off the mind control drug, he helps out many times in ways only he could, without the film spelling it out. No character outright says it. It's communicating power can be dangerous, but also invaluable and useful. And something I realized thinking back on that scene, it and the Nightcrawler scenes are really just among the most unique scenes in the X-Men films, but they aren't the only ones that show how much struggle the filmmakers have coming up with interesting ways that these mutants can counter each other, can actually fight, instead of just one mutant for every scene, sometimes more than one, but they will be separated in editing, which, again, Civil War manages to not, using their power at a time. I'm not saying it always is like that, but a lot of the time. And the MCU is so good at balancing. In Thor 1, while Thor does dominate the action scene in Jotunheim, we do get to see the others do standout attacks. Think about it. Loki, Sif, the Warriors 3, that's 5 characters who attack in different ways. 1 second. It's 6 total. And all of them get at least a little chance to show off. Obviously, those don't have as varied powers as the X-Men ones, but even when the X-Men ones do have powers that you could easily use several at a time, they often don't manage to. X-Men 3's climax, the future fights in Days of Future Past, and some of the climax of Apocalypse, they do manage to an extent. Tech wasn't advanced enough before X-Men 3, but past that, they really have no excuse. And I was wondering if this movie would manage to balance all the different tones of the very different characters. Would there be tonal whiplash, whose tone gets to define the tone of the scenes where there are very different characters meet? The Guardians of the Galaxy with Thor. So far only the Thor solo movies show more than one planet, if even a single one of those planets is Earth. Again, other than the brief glimpses of Earth in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which I maintain basically shouldn't have been there. Anyway, yes, I find that it did a good job of balancing the different tones. I didn't feel any tonal whiplash. I would say it's more of a Guardians scene than a Thor scene when Thor meets, and it makes sense. There are more of those, and he's on their turf. I should have realized this long ago, but literally all 3 X-Men movies that are the third in their series, so the original continuity, the First Class continuity, and the Wolverine solo movies, all of them either have Caliban or a mutant with Caliban's powers of detecting mutants. Now, having rewatched Thor Ragnarok, a few words on that Hulk depiction to merge the depiction in this one, which really, there's almost no depiction in this one. So anyway, ultimately, he goes with Thor because he is his friend, so is Valkyrie, who joins Thor. Before that, he enjoys getting applause in the arena. He's into Valkyrie. He feels like Earth hates him. He does wish he wasn't always angry, so quick to anger. He does become Banner when he sees and hears Natasha. I said in my video on the movie I wasn't sure how Hulk felt about him killing the other gladiators in the arena and the fight between them. Thor said he cheated, which he really didn't, though cheating was done on his behalf. But my point remains, Hulk is one of the most powerful beings in the universe, of the Marvel Universe. Few fights are going to be fair when it's against him, especially one-on-one with medieval weaponry. So how does he feel about killing all these people? It's not like they chose to be gladiators. Certainly, a number of the gladiators we do see did not choose to be gladiators. And defeating him was apparently the only way to win their freedom. So, yeah. I guess we are to take from him enjoying the applause in the arena that he feels he's finally being appreciated for who he is, for smashing things coming so naturally to him. I still wish there was more indication, especially given that he's at least a little more intelligent and, he can express himself verbally. I'm not saying he necessarily feels guilty. Maybe he feels it was me or them. It's the only way to survive on this planet. I just want to know. I get that Hulk himself might not be able to articulate how he feels about it, but can't Thor? And then Hulk has an emotional response to that, same as he did to a bunch of other things Thor said. I do appreciate that it's a movie that wants to be hot, whether you're into women or men. Yes, Hela and Valkyrie spend most of their screen time in skin-tight outfits, but Thor is shirtless and otherwise made attractive, and if you're into Hulk, the jacuzzi scene is made for you. Hey, maybe there'll be a porn parody where they'll show the Hulk dong. Back to characterization. Thinking about it, in Age of Ultron, it's not quite clear why he leaves Earth. Banner feels like he should, but it's Hulk, not Banner, who leaves Earth. Now, it definitely did upset him when he woke up from Scarlet Witch's spell and realized he'd been attacking people. Excuse me. So that might still be it, avoiding hurting people again. I have liked a lot of the characterization he's received in the MCU, but other than the original Solo movie, they haven't given him enough time, shown enough what he's like. They have for every other major character. There's the fear that people won't like seeing a lot of him as a character rather than seeing him smashing stuff. And I was hoping this would do better, and yeah, maybe the fourth Avengers movie will. Yeah. Now, Loki is in the Avengers. One second. Right. Loki in the Avengers and Ultron are seen not only in situations where they feel in control, but also ones where they don't. Ultron is scared, but we never lose respect for the Avengers film villain. And yeah, they did the same with Thanos, so that's really great. Now, in the first two Avengers movies, the villain may have an army, but the Avengers have a Hulk, sorry. But he has few characters who have abilities or superpowers on his side. But because they use those powers right, they do significant damage to the Avengers. Thanos has these 4, but it's still not very many compared to the Avengers, so they again do a lot of damage. It makes for more compelling scenes. And yeah, certainly they're very dangerous to the Avengers when they show up almost all of the time. Now, and I was wondering if Bucky still would have the Matt Damon's Jason Bourne thing going on. A lot of what happens with him in Civil War is right out of the Bourne supremacy, and Black Widow's Ultron flashbacks are somewhat like the Bourne ultimatums. I was wondering if Bucky or others would have to convince police or such there are bigger things going on, taking him in or taking him down. I appreciate that there wasn't, because it really wasn't necessary. He's been in Wakanda the whole time, and he doesn't have to leave Wakanda in this movie. Really, every assassin spy in the MCU has some level of Jason Bourne sequel going on. Lots of movie spies since they came out, I rewatched the trilogy in preparation for this movie. Shut up, there's only 3 movies in that series. And yeah, Hawkeye too has some, Now, let's see. Now, some people have theorized that Loki would sacrifice himself to save Thor in a moment of redemption, poetic after the endings of the first Thor films. And you could say, I mean, it comes close to that, you know. And let's see. Yeah, and you know, I watched the official trailer number one. If 1 second, did I forget? No, I did not forget. I very much did not forget. If Loki doesn't betray someone, usually the good guys, and or trick someone to get out of the bad situation, this would be the first MCU film he makes an appearance in for that to be the case. And yeah, people theorized that either Cap or Tony would die, and unless I'm terribly mistaken, neither did. Neither of them were among the people disappearing at the end. Now, both actors enjoy the work, but their prep and the work are tough on them. And Cap sacrificed himself all the time. He does in all three of his solo films. Tony sacrificed himself in Avengers 1 and 2. People was saying one of the two will die in an act of heroism that defeats Thanos. Cap will die. Tony has to live with the guilt and retires. It means he could still come back. And either or both could also have someone else take up the mantle, Bucky or Sam, Rhodes or possibly Pepper. And if Cap dies with all he represents, it will mean more to the MCU. I could imagine that one or both will die in Avengers 4. Now, yeah, and will the following get along? Ant-Man and Star-Lord, both having been around outlaws and not having a stable home life. Again, already mentioned that Ant-Man is in the movie. More on Black Widow, who don't share any scenes. As former agents of bad guys having killed people they now wish they hadn't. Iron Man and Rocket, as engineers who take risks and love the ability to destroy, also don't share scenes. I do think that most of the decisions of who would spend time around whose character, yeah, I found most of them compelling choices. And yeah, you know, Star-Lord listening to music does become soundtrack now that he has a ton of songs. And I'm glad that Thanos was more than a one-note want to conquer the world that the audience cares about villain. Now, apparently in the comics, Thanos loses because he deep down wants to, and I was hoping that they would maybe subvert that, having someone appeal to his morality, saying he shouldn't want to rule, and he seems touched for a few seconds, a South Park reaction that you can't really read, and then he says, "You didn't think that would actually work, did you?" Now, News talks back, suggests that several Avengers would die, and Doctor Strange would undo it by reversing time. And Tony leave the Iron Man suit, putting it on an injured Peter, making him fear losing his mentee. Yeah, the opposite of mentor. After all, this fear letting him down, and refuses to fly him to safety, staying behind and sacrifice himself. 10 years after his debut, he's grown to dad mode, willing to sacrifice himself for someone else. We are on page 15 of 19, people who are getting there. It would also be similar to him saving Pepper at the risk of himself dying when his mansion is blown up in Iron Man 3. Now, Thor lost Mjolnir after 3 solo films and 2 Avengers films. Cap gave up the shield after 3 solo films and 2 Avengers films. I was wondering if Tony would lose or give up the Iron Man armor in this, at least for himself. I mean, again, since he also did in Iron Man 3, only have Age of Ultron, I ignore that. In Civil War, he only puts on the suit once at the 1 hour mark, I think it is. You know, only because he sees no alternative. He barely uses it in Homecoming either. He barely wears it anyway. He does use it when it's called for. Is he looking to put it on in this? And no, he's completely ready to put it on. I also like that was a good, like, she says you don't need that, and he's like, no, I don't, but it's it's for safety, and then we find out unless I'm totally mistaken, it is what powers the thing he has on his chest is now what powers the Bleeding Edge suit. Without that, he couldn't use the nanotech. I was wondering if there would be time travel on a universe with other versions of the characters, since both are introduced in the Doctor Strange solo movie. Certainly, set photos seem to indicate that Cap is wearing the Cap uniform. Which it otherwise seems like he's given up. Not to mention he's clean-shaven, as he was when he wore that. I guess, that stuff, this and Avengers 4 were filmed at the same time. So, yeah, that's probably in Avengers 4. And, yeah, neither alternate universes nor time travel, really. You know, Thanos briefly rewinds time a little. Now, let's see. Yeah, in his solo film, Doctor Strange rewinds time after the good guys lose in the climax. Then he moves time back and forth over and over to give him an edge. I was wondering if there would be anything like that in this, and if you introduce a new element. And yeah, in this the reality warping is new. You know, we saw the gem, but yeah, the Thanos actually changing reality just right around him like that is different from, yeah. It was the threat in Thor: The Dark World, I believe it was. Now, the time warping wasn't used in a fight before the climax of Doctor Strange. Every film to star Tony has a fake-out death or thing that will kill him before the movie's over for him. And yeah, in this, it's the stabbing. Now, I guess I accidentally put that to... Oh, excellent. That gets us a little further. Yeah, that gets us to page 16. Oh, thank goodness. Okay. So, trailers. This is notes I took from watching the trailers. And yes, I realize a lot of people actually say these when the trailers come out. I do not. But yeah, I'm just the first bunch of these are from official trailer number 1. We see Tony Stark in despair, Vision's gemless forehead, and skin is no longer purple but Caucasian. I was wondering if that was a dream. We see Peter's hairs rise on his arms, Spidey sense. Portal opens, Peter and his classmates see from public transport. Time stopped, only Tony moves. That didn't actually happen in the movie, did it? Time stop. I mean, in the trailer, it's time having paused legitimately. It's not just that the others are standing and they're ready for no. There's no movement other than Tony. I would definitely say. And we see someone stepping over bodies, but not Loki. You know, people pointed that out even before the movie came out. Yeah, stepping over Asgardian bodies. We see Loki handing the Tesseract to Thanos, hoping to be spared. Bald, uncovered head of Thanos, eyes scanning. I would even there, he feels like he, you know. Some have said that they felt it was there in the movie, but not in the trailer. I would say in the trailer also. He feels like he's physically there, not a special effect. I'm not quite sure. I'd say they got there before now in the 2 previous, you know, scenes of it, and it's so much better than Steppenwolf. I also prefer this subdued kind of purple over the, admittedly comics appropriate, stronger purple that he's had in his MCU appearances before this. And it's again that thing of, for the MCU, as long as they tone it down a little, they can actually use the colors. I mean, look at the comics. Tony's, you know, Iron Man has the red and the gold, you know, and in some of the comics, if you took it directly from the comic and put it up on screen, it would not look good in live action. But because they toned it down, you know, instead of putting everyone in black frickin' leather, I've done enough videos about the X-Men movies. Again, I love the first 2 and Days of Future Past. But yeah, they actually get, yeah. I was very, very happy with Thanos' appearance in this. And I get that some people would have wanted him to wear the helmet for more of the movie. I think it works. And you get it in the flashback, you know. And a Black Order member throws Spirit Cap and he catches it, which is, yeah. And Hulkbuster, again, repurposed for fighting Thanos. And from how the person is moving, it must be Hulk inside of it, and it turned out to be Banner, not Hulk. that shot of him outside of the suit and looking, and it seemed like he was looking at not Natasha. Did that actually happen? I just forgot what they said or something. Anyway. Now, Thanos grabs Peter, slams him into the ground. Fun isn't something one considers when balancing the universe. He genuinely thinks he's doing the right thing. He also says destiny still arrives, meaning he thinks he can't be stopped. That's what he's doing has to happen. It's going to happen. Mad Titan. He seems pretty chill, except for the violence he causes them. This does bring a smile to my face. And somewhere Heath Joker's like, finally someone gets it. And the Infinity Gems rip from Vision's forehead via the scepter. And Thanos has 2 gems in the gauntlet. I really appreciate that they faked that. Because in the movie, in that scene, he's got 5. He doesn't quite have 6, but he's got 5. He doesn't just have 2. I'm really glad that they did not give away that by the time he was on Earth, he would have 5. Greatly appreciate that. It would really have been... Yeah, I would not have wanted that given away in the trailers. You know, it's like how they also didn't give away what Stormbreaker looks like, or, you know, and in the Ragnarok trailers they didn't give away that he lost an they didn't give away that he had lost an eye in the original footage, and like, was it D23 or something like that. And I'm almost also certain that there's scenes in the movie where he has 2 eyes, where the trailer made it look like he still only had 1. So yeah. And we've got Black Panther with his army, hundreds of forces fight, War Machine, Hulk, Falcon, Winter Soldier, Black Widow, Cap with the shield glove, Black Panther's security forces, and Black Panther lead a force of what looks to be Wakandan soldiers. Thor, who the heck are you guys? And the surviving Guardians. And I appreciate that, you know, everyone like just stands there, but Mantis gives the little wave. And I also, wait, did something happen with her? I forget. She was part of the fight, and they were, you know, she was part of why they were winning. But yeah, I forget if some. Yeah, sorry. So much happened in this movie, especially in the last, like maybe third or so. And I noted it looks like it gives the many characters stuff to do, which it does. Final Infinity Stone will be in Wakanda. You know, this was what, yeah. Well, yeah, it is. It's visions. It's not the Soul Stone. It will be in Wakanda, and the big climax is the battle between good and evil over protecting and getting it, respectively. I can't think of a single thing about the trailer that I don't love. Early in the trailer, Hulk has landed in the Sanctum Sanctorum. He fell from space, survived going through the atmosphere. You know, now that I've watched the movie, I know that it's Bifrost that caused that. But, yeah, in the comics, he has survived reaching the edge of Earth's atmosphere, getting close to there. You know, there's this one story where he's like, I don't want to stay on Earth. The Earthlings are always mean to me. And so he decides he's going to try to jump into space, and it takes a couple of jumps before he gets high enough, and he gets angrier and angrier for every time he doesn't quite make it, so he puts more effort and energy into it, you know, adrenaline. And the final jump, he goes just past Earth's atmosphere, and yeah, he loses consciousness because the Hulk still needs to breathe oxygen. But moments after, he starts plummeting down to Earth, and yeah, he survives. You know, he's fine. He doesn't need like medical attention or anything. Now, Thor and the Guardians of the Galaxy will deal with Thanos' ships of the like. Yeah, that was what I thought. But really, it's, you know, that when Thanos is on Titan, that's what they try to deal with. And the MCU heroes that are in New York will deal with Thanos himself. Yeah, again, it thought that Thanos would go to New York, which he doesn't. Possibly some of the Black Order members, yeah. And the MCU heroes in Wakanda. I didn't realize that yeah, it's because the ones in New York end up on Titan. They don't go to Wakanda. So I thought there would be 3 different groups. I thought it would be the Guardians and Thor on Titan, but not the other. But anyway. Let's see. And maybe like once they lost in New York, Thanos would teleport them to Titan or something. Now, yeah, Wakanda will deal with invading forces of Thanos, possibly ejecting at least one Infinity Stone in the country. Will it work well to split the two heroes up in this? And yeah, it does. Now, the next ones are from the official trailer 2. Okay, we're almost there. Gamora tells us that Thanos does want to kill the universe, confirms that he can do it with a snap of his fingers. I'm glad that they put that in the trailer so people could latch on to that fact before watching the movie, since there's so much going on in the movie that are on the trailers. Great look with the helmet. Iron Man now has some kind of extra rocket engine on the back of his feet in his armor. Tony says we have what Thanos wants, so that's what we'll use. They really will use the Infinity Stones against him. And Star-Lord... Well, yeah, ultimately they don't really end up doing that. Star-Lord tells Tony to his face that the plan sucks, so Star-Lord should get to make the plan. We got a flashback. Gamora as a child of Thanos. Her tiny hand holding on to one of his big fingers, very Logan. Lots of great action shots in quick succession, around a minute and a half into the trailer. Force field at the edge of Wakanda. Doctor Strange being tortured by one of Thanos' lieutenants. Hubba's armor overpowered by several individual aliens, all fighting at once. What ended up happening there? Because Bruce didn't end up outside of it. Did someone else fight them off? I don't think that... I think that shot was in the movie. Maybe that was one of the situations that Thor came in and saved. Anyway, similar to how after fighting him for a while, dozens of Chitauri line up and all fire on him in the climax of the first Avengers. Now, Thanos attacking Steve Rogers with the gauntlet. Steve Rogers grabs onto the gauntlet and slows him down. Peter doesn't believe Steve's last name is Strange, and or that he's a doctor, which, yeah, I still like that joke. It's more or less the same joke as in Strange's solo movie. So confirmed, there will be banter, quips, and jokes in this, and they will come out of the characters' personalities, at least the quips we see so far. Tony and Star-Lord, who has the bigger ego? And Tony's going to be like, I stopped an alien invasion of a major city, and Star-Lord's going to be like, so did I. And Peter, Drax, or someone else is going to say, but you didn't do that alone, which is just going to exacerbate things. I'm a little disappointed that that's not in the movie. Maybe it's a deleted scene. Not gonna lie, the nature of Wakanda battle is starting to remind me of the nature battle at the end of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, which I rewatched to compare. Sorry about that. That was cardboard hitting cardboard. Yeah, I also rewatched Rise of the Sith, and so also rewatched Attack of the Clones. And I also rewatched the extras on the DVDs, anything they said about it there. I've forgotten, but they've finished the special effects on some deleted scenes in Star Wars Episode 1. This includes an extended pod race. Really had the finger of the pulse of the fan base there. Also, Justin Burfield auditioned for Anakin. Malcolm in the Middle's Reese could have been Anakin Skywalker. Anyway, back to this movie. And the scene I was compared to. Huge group of individuals fighting each other, few vehicles, large force field that things blow up against. As Star Wars prequel action scenes go, it's not bad, and I was wondering if maybe, still, the filmmakers want to fix it, prove it could be done right. Certainly, in Avengers 1, the destroyer all stopping suddenly when the ship explodes is a lot like the Phantom Menace when Anakin accidentally blows up the ship and the battle droids drop. Now, ultimately, it's not that much like that scene because in Star Wars, it's that the force field prevents them from, like cannon fire from getting past for the first while until the force field is deactivated. But the individual battle droids can walk through the force field as long as they walk slowly. And in this, you can't walk through the force field. It will fry you. Now, commentary points out that in the Star Wars scene, the grass starts out green by the end of the battle. Scorch marks, the sky is beautiful blue, white clouds, but ends up partially obscured by dark gray and or black smoke. And yeah, I didn't really notice. I gotta admit. I mean, there are less explosions in this than and laser fire and such, obviously. So, anyway, they're the good guys, can't attack the bad guys that are on the outside of the force field. Here they can't either, but the force field genuinely does stop, Anyway, bad guys can walk if they move slowly directly through the force field, but eventually the force field is taken out, and the generators and the backs of animals are taken out. Tristan Cooper posted what happens in the comics when Thanos snaps his fingers. It looks like the Rapture, and it kind of does in the movie as well. And there's that one called Team Groot. Groot, turn that thing off. I am Groot. Whoa, language! Baby Groot swore when speaking to Yondu near Ego, so that's, another reference, another follow-up joke. And Star-Lord imitates Thor's naturally deep voice. Now, rewatched for research. I rewatched every MCU movie, and I've watched every MCU movie, and except for Black Panther, rarely watch anything in theaters more than once. It's a recent Sono copy, though I also haven't been able to rent a copy of Thor Ragnarok. But I got like a free try at like renting a movie, so that was Ragnarok was the one I rented. Watched it just days ago, maybe a week ago, I forget. Anyway, at least twice each, almost all of them more than that, some way more, and at least once within the last few months. Within that same period, I've also rewatched Spider-Man 1 through 3, The Amazing Spider-Man 1 2, Daredevil movie, Darkman, Punisher Warzone, Green Street Hooligans, Sherlock Holmes 1, the Robert Downey Jr., Sherlock Holmes 1 and 2, the Robert Downey Jr. ones. I forgot how similar that phenomenon was to the Iron Man films. Downey Jr. in an unexpected approach to a character that people more or less know but don't necessarily have high expectations for a film based on. Then the second one doesn't go enough new places to capitalize on success and ends up doing the same thing. Then again, it would be tough in a third to go bigger than the second one did, and you can argue the second one already did push what the first did too far, certainly in some ways, I'd say. Push, all of which I watched at least twice before then too. I've said it before, but the Spider-Man 3 riff tracks is amazing, and so is the Dark Knight one and the Heroes one. We watched other movies with the actors featured, including Beautiful Mind, Vision, Dogville Vision, and Cell but he isn't in this one. Mimic, Thanos, Sunshine, Steve Rogers and Wong, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Tony Stark, Street Kings, well, for Sabotage, Steve Rogers, 28 Weeks Later, Hawkeye, Out of Sight, Rhodey, Nick Fury and Vulture, Hot Fuzz, before Renegade Cut did his video on it, which, wait 1 second, who's in that? That's the Hobbit, and again, I know he's not in this, but I don't need an excuse to watch Hot Fuzz. Again, I didn't say that, but I also recently rewatched Spaced, so and that was basically, I used the fact that I'm now watching and will soon be doing thoughts on videos allo to, as an excuse to watch other, British, comedy series. So, yeah. And that was everything I had noted. I don't think I have anything else that I haven't already said. I mean, let's see. Yeah, to try to wrap it up in a bow, the movie's absolutely amazing. It delivered everything I hoped it would, and it's, I mean, ultimately, there are definitely, the movies that don't have as many characters as this definitely are able to dive deeper into singular issues. This one doesn't dive that deep into, there's not that much that it dives really deeply into, but it does actually have depth. It has something for every character, basically. Every character has something to do, and most of them actually, it's not just, ooh, look at this cool character who looks interesting and can do cool stuff. No, they also have stuff in there that's, I mean, again, if they weren't really bothering, the movie didn't have to have Nebula tortured, especially in front of Gamora, having been caught trying to kill Thanos. It didn't have to have, you know, yeah, stuff happen between Gamora and Nebula that upsets. It's just, but it does because they do care. They really want to deliver on that, and yeah, because honestly, again, yeah, there are probably going to be people who are like, the movie's too long. You should cut the Nebula stuff. Then why bother having Nebula in the movie if you're not going to have some material dealing with how horribly she's been treated by Thanos? This is what it is. Even after all of that, after everything we know he's put her through, he's still torturing her. I mean, yes, he caught her trying to kill him, but he's killing people left and right. It's not as though it's some kind of like, I can't believe you would try to kill someone. No, it's, yeah, he genuinely, he's torturing her before Gamora even sees it. He wanted to torture her more, even before it would get him anything from Gamora. He could easily have waited to start the torture. But, although I suppose it's possible that the torture was also what allowed them to see the footage. But then, yeah, I mean, he could still have brought Gamora in and just only found out if she knew something from that, but yeah, it's just, and Gamora, isn't afraid of him as such. She's afraid of what he could do, but she's not gonna, yeah, just, she's Gamora. She doesn't just like back down and like bow her head and be like, no, she's like, you're wrong, so screw you. I'm not gonna just take it lying down. Yeah. It did exactly what, if you go into it and you're like, oh, this doesn't have enough depth. If you want more depth, there, the, several of the other MCU movies have a lot of depth to them. Really, all of them have at least some depth, have at least something to say, but yeah, and that's what those are for. This is to get to see all the characters together and to see them go up against someone who actually requires having all of them together to fight, and yeah, it is exactly what it is supposed to be and what it's promised to be. And yeah, I excuse me, I absolutely love it, and it might be my favorite of the entire MCU, but yeah, I could just briefly, so you have like frame of reference, my favorites in no particular order: the first Avengers, the second, yeah, the first two Avengers movies, Captain America 3, Captain America 2 as well. Let's see. I suppose that's pretty much. And the ones that get extremely close are the first two Thor movies. You know what? I'll grant Ragnarok as well. Yeah, the Thor movies, Iron Man 1 and 3, Captain America 1, Doctor Strange, both Guardians movies, and Ant-Man 1. And then, let's just briefly see what's left. That leaves Homecoming, and Iron Man 2. And Iron Man 2 is just, it's okay. It's not as bad as some people. Watch it again. It's not that bad of a movie. It's just not that great, and it's especially disappointing coming after. Oh, right, that leaves Incredible Hulk. That one's also great. It's on the level of Doctor Strange and such, I'd say. Iron Man 2, it's just because it comes after Iron Man 1, you know, and Iron Man 1 was such a breath of fresh air. I don't think there's anything as disappointing as Iron Man 2, but when you really watch it, it's not that bad of a movie overall. And Spider-Man Homecoming, I mean, I think it's mostly because just the action in it isn't that amazing, but it captures Peter Parker and Spider-Man better than any of the other movies, and Tom Holland's perfectly cast as both, you know, but it's definitely better than Iron Man 2. But it's not my favorite. It's more a funny movie starring Peter Parker and Spider-Man than it is a Spider-Man movie that is also funny, you know, if that makes sense. But yeah, I gotta say, sometimes the action, whether the action is really, really good or not very good, is a big deal. And it's also just ultimately, I mean, it doesn't deal with the kind of the level of intense issue that the Thor movies do. You know, I'm not saying it should. If the action was a lot better, then it would be higher ranked. But anyway, yeah, I it has a lot of the best action in the MCU. It has a lot of the best action I've ever seen in any movie. I Yeah, I mean, I think I've pretty much said everything, excuse me, that I had to say. But yeah, I I really, really love this movie, and I cannot wait. I'm so glad that it's a year I have to wait, not 3 years like with the other. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely love it.